Okay, what a twisting, winding road we have set ourselves upon. I do believe we're rocking and rolling. Wrong kind of energy. Sunday. Look, check it out. Let's take a little stroll here. I've perked up in, you know what, sometimes difficulty and challenge. Having something that pulls your focus and says, you better pay attention to me or ain't nothing happening. If you get something like that, sometimes I say you. I got to watch my pronouns. I can say, you guys are always doing this and that, and I don't mean the kind and considerate, thoughtful folks that would be here in this, you know, if you're keeping this kind of company, I don't mean you, even if it does apply to you, because I find I'm very insecure. If someone says, I hate when people do this weird kind of nuanced social observations that are half-baked, I'm like, wait, that's me. They don't understand. They say they don't understand what we're trying to get at when we do this. Or take religion, for instance. Criticizing religion in wide general swaths without having any indication of what that belief structure is based on, how it works. You know, instead of doing that, people use what they've seen in movies and TV shows or imagined as the basis for comparison. That's what they're making their judgments on. That's it, usually. So you take religion, you take something like that. It sucks when people get it wrong. But insecurity abounds, and people should criticize religion. That's what we're doing here, okay? This is a point I want to get to very quickly. Let's take a little stroll. Let's take a little stroll through the internet here, okay? We are going to watch a video that the Gnostic Informant put out to get us primed and started. I've got my my Clip Studio program set up here, so we can take notes. All right, it's gonna be a flurry of gods and goddesses and countries and areas and empires and things. It's a lot of information. That would take hours. That would take the 3 or 4 hours that we're gonna be here streaming to transcribe, separate, organize, to have a visual reference point like we're looking to pull out of. Not just today. I want to start doing this regularly to make a chart so that after the stream, we can say, this is what we learned today. This is what we're trying to agree on, disagree on, just to establish where the parameters and the categories and the details and the things that we could pick at or add to, we want them to be there, not just here or there and everywhere. And one of the considerations, which will take a lot of objectivity, is establishing the best way for me, maybe, and I'm really eager to hear feedback on this, for me to organize my speech. As we approach difficult topics, to really understand them, context is an absolute must. To establish context and share it conversationally, you're going to be these words can mess it up so that I think I'm telling the right story, and then I come back and find out I'm like, no one's going to know what the hell I meant. You need to, okay, it just works easier in my mind to say you need to, I'm talking the royal you, that works, the general, anybody you need to personify, to be able to kind of, it's empathy, right? You'll need to use a heavy dose of empathy to understand where somebody else is coming from, and to have a conversation about understanding, empathy, explanation, in history and times that aren't even here to examine. If something is contemporary and immediate, that is difficult to objectify and transmit back and forth. No matter how academic you are, you need to start structuring your presentation and objectifying what it is that you're trying to transmit, communicate, reciprocate over, through. And to do that effectively, with politics, economics, religion, with any of these really heavy hitting subjects, you need to kind of develop some dialogue to say, oh, okay, well, what they'd be thinking is this. Or I'd say, I walk out my door and I look that way and I say, burr, 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 burr. I might do a voice, you know. It might not be a highly entertaining or super cool voice, but it's a device to communicate. Like we got, you know, our watchful God. I'm an idol worshiper. Get over it. Your 10 commandments are garbage. We got a watchful God here, right? He's had as many grapes as he wants, which is incidentally for Fox none. They don't want them even when they can get them. So that story's weird. But so many things to get distracted with. Having a nice visual up here so that we can track. Let's see, like something we're going to work on today is and figuring out how to organize this. I appreciate input, help. So here's one. Here's another. And how we do. See how we do. See how we do. I don't know if you can read this or not. It'd probably be a little easier if I have something that says on the screen too. Letter and spirit of the law. And what we have here on my Clip Studio program is something to help spell that out for us. Now, come on, shrink, shrink, shrink. Shrink, shrink, shrink. Shrink, shrink, shrink. Shrink that raster layer. Shrink that raster layer. Anyways, figuring out how to get a visual representation of what we're working with is going to be an aid to all of us, because there is such a breadth of emotion and thought to represent, and that is what religion is meant to do. It is meant to represent not only the prescriptive or descriptive aspects of what is, but the normative and the moral, ethical parameters too. Now, ethics and morals, you know, pirates and samurais had ethics and morals, but they were very deadly, you know. Ancient Hebrew Israelites, think Deborah, the fiery woman, the prophet. She was a prophet. Deborah, you know, look her up. She's interesting. Her and her bitches, they didn't have a light touch. They used hammers and nails to give that kiss right on the head. Boom. That's how they did. And she was a prophet, you know. Go out and drive some nails through people's heads, right? So ethics and morality, there's a lot to parse here. There's a lot to parse. And I'm feeling like garbage. Garbage. I can't keep blaming the Canadian wildfires. I just think it's Havana syndrome. That's the most logical explanation for how I'm prone to distraction as is, but man, I get these headaches. It's Havana syndrome. It's got to be. Anyways, we would be wise to tell the truth about what we actually know. And religion encourages people to imagine, right? Imagine. So you say, oh, that's all belief. That's all belief-based thinking. And I'm a process-based thinker. I am a process-based thinker. Now, my metrics here, my analytics say that nobody's here, but it also says other stuff. So please do speak up if you are here and you'd like to communicate, because once people come in, if anybody is here, which on YouTube, unless you're like Destiny or Vosh's friend, these are the parameters. If you're not Destiny or Vosh's friend, you can fucking forget about it. No one's looking for you. No, none. It's a game that is so disgusting and discouraging and depressing that it's daunting. It's daunting. There's shit we need to talk about, not so that we're endlessly talking, but so that we can say, oh, you know what, that piece of culture war, misinformation that is motivating all these redneck a-hole hillbillies to mobilize around some evangelical bunch of insanity. Hey, you know that little piece of misinformation that's catalyzed all of this, fake news or whatever? That is a problem, right? That's a problem. So being able to point to it and say, here's the key to unlock that gate of misinformation that they keep around a half-truth. We want to develop the means, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we want to develop the means to dismantle and dismiss harmful ideas and motivations that are metastasized. I mean, maybe I'm taking it too far. This is all polemic, right? It's all polemic because even though we've got hyper specialization, we've got the opportunity to indulge not only hyper specialization in academic or engineering, left brain oriented tasks, skills, but also people have been able to dedicate themselves to the abstract and like what makes art, right? What makes art valuable? Things like that, right? Or what rules and what things on the ground, IRL, make the value of stocks and bonds and indexes and all that fun grown-up money stuff. Like what makes it tick? What makes something have value and what makes that value go up and down? People will develop algorithmic artificial intelligence type technology to keep track of it. So whether we're tracking something concrete, physical, abstract, and esoteric, artistic, or very, very practical, any which way that we look in this breadth of human human emotion, human thought, what is the human? What is the human? That's what we're working at. So this is not simple. And people in my observations, right? In my observations, I've seen that most people are under the impression of some very disconnected cultural biases. In other words, our tribes or our sense of community, who we are, what it is, where we come from, how much loyalty do we owe to the community that we come from, or the history that we're representing, or the land that we're living on, any number of motivations. How do we connect ourselves to these things? And are they at odds with what would otherwise be seen as reality? We've got all these tribes and we've got all these circles and groups of people making some very unrighteous claims in the name of righteousness. So let's take a real quick look before we put up this video and I start putting pen to paper, so to speak. On this here YouTube, I see, I wish this was the screen. What if alt-hist is back? I didn't know he went away. That guy's interesting. Oh man, where to start? I guess I'm not finding what I wanted to find. Oh, this is interesting. The secret history behind all world religions. Gnostic Informant TV. How many channels does that guy have? Secret origins of Islam. Was Muhammad brainwashed? Looking through this stuff is fun. I can learn more. And I suspect that you're probably coming from a very similar place. We're looking at large patterns. Some of us are digging into the mundane. Some of us even find beauty in the mundane, right? A dripping faucet with a calcified, ring around it. I mean, if you're a photographer, you know what I mean. You're looking for contrast. You're looking for position and depth, and we can dedicate ourselves to understanding what makes that craft or that focus worthwhile. And it's not very often that someone is able to compete with the advances of these various fields without having plugged into and connected to their predecessors. right? There's a wealth of information out here, and we don't really have time to dig into the things that we're interested in for our betterment. And even if we can, even if we're privileged enough to live a life like that, of humoring our inclinations and preferences, even if we can cater to those preferences, we're still in need of some direction from, let me try this a different way. If we don't know where it is that we're trying to get to, it's very rare, it's very unlikely that we're going to get there. Like, if you're trying to learn how to do something, what is that something? What is the end result? What does the end result look like in your mind? What is the what's the takeaway that you're trying to get? You know, if you can explain, articulate, if you can understand, see, this is where it's all coming apart. In my head, it makes a lot of sense. Outside of my head, this is where what would otherwise feel like a solid, salient idea, it falls apart. So there are, right from the beginning, there are two different dilemmas. One of which is oops. You know what? I could probably zoom in a little more too. Yeah, I can. We'll let this ride for now. Communication and see, what would the opposite of that be? It's not necessarily an opposite I'm looking for. The verbal, maybe verbal. Versus, see, I'm searching for verses. It's what I want. But that dialectic kind of framework is not always the appropriate framework to express or communicate or okay, let's try something else here, something that should come before this. Process. Okay, process. We've got three legs. This is one. Maybe we'll call this the Sputnik, right? The Sputnik instead of the dialectic. Process. Hopefully this is coming up on the screen. Okay, yeah, it looks like you guys can see it. Freeform. Refinement. Should also be like maybe reduction. You know, I think you're reducing a sauce on the stove. And then polish. Present. Right now, that's not set in stone. That's not dogma, which is, I want to get into religion tonight. I want to get into religion. But the thing that bothered me right from the get-go, other than there weren't technical difficulties, but maybe the awkward start that I don't want to pull you into this, that I had. Sorry for always wanting to pull you into this, but that's what I want. That's what I want. That's the end result I'm looking for the most comprehensive, cooperative. See, this is another point. I want to jump back over to the map and put commanded versus like voluntary. you know, choice versus being compelled. You know, this is a commandment versus there's an incentive, a positive incentive. So you're rationally wanting to do that thing. I think I wrote better words than I'm able to make down, but I've set a task in front of me, and I would like to see that through. The thing that I saw that got me thinking, oh, okay, this is ridiculous, is 4 hours ago, somebody put out something that said, why are so many people going back to religion? They're not. They're not. But the appearance, as we look at these things, and their patterns. We'll see them on Twitter. We'll see them on YouTube. And we're letting, as is the case with us humans, we're letting the optics of something influence us about the internal, right? We're looking at the external and assuming the internal. When it comes to sharing the thoughts that I have, I can maybe give you the wrong impression about where I'm coming from. It seems like I'm scatterbrained and insane, but that's not the case. It's more the conundrum, the problem is organizing what I've gathered, organizing what I've worked on. A lot of what I've worked on is gathering and understanding based off of other people's work too. That's a very, very important part of this. I don't want to take credit for anything that I don't deserve credit for. And even if I do deserve credit, I don't want glory. I just want to be understood, right? I just want to be understood. But that's nothing to be mocked. Wanting to be understood, as one of our friends said on in chat over on Twitch the other night, I believe it was St. Francis that said, seek to understand, not be understood, something like that. But I'm not for the one or the other. I think both are essential. And if there's a way to, like, if there's a metaphor for all of what I'm trying to say, it is that both are essential. All is essential. Now that is not the same as, because if you're paying attention, if you're following me, and you heard the thing I said there, that both and all are important, then you may start to extrapolate that I'm a relativist, like an endless. There's a lot of misperceptions based off of the patterns that we see in these various spaces, on these various platforms. We'll see patterns play out. I see them too. I try to cut against them, but also stay around them. And I'm at odds. I don't think so much because I'm like scatterbrained and insane, as much as people need to know where you're coming from. There's a lot of anticipation about someone being this or that. If you're religious, that means you're Christian. What? That doesn't mean that. Or you say, okay, I'm not a Christian. Or you say, oh, you're some new age spiritualist. It doesn't mean that either. People want to know what it means very quickly. This is the first salient thing I think I've really said. And it's very important. People want to know what the hell you're about like that. And that's just impossible. If you're about anything at all, it's not that simple. I say, are you a, last week when I did this, someone asked, am I an atheist was the question. And I wish I caught it as soon as it came up. This is why I'm keeping chat up, and I'm like, I'm on it. If someone's in here and they want to talk and they want to get down on some complicated shit, I am ready, okay? And I'll be nice and I'll be patient, because the goal is to not just be understood on my part. You know, like, you can choose whether you care to understand me or not. I think one of my mistakes is putting that out in front. Be like, if you see something that you think is inconsistent, or something that doesn't like gel with your expectations about how these tribes work, then look into it. But people don't do that. They don't do that. They need to know what your position is right away. As I am attempting to communicate difficult, complex ideas, like not like really, truly, not to put on an affect and be seen as this way or that, like a sounding smart or whatever. I'm really trying to wrestle very complicated things down that I think other people have a better capacity toward, but aren't necessarily playing as wide of a field. So there are smarter, more articulate, better educated, more well-versed. I am not the ideal. Okay, I'm not the ideal. I know this. Nobody is. I mean, that's the truth. Nobody is the ideal. Even if you can find someone that's physically fit, which gender, what race, that's not that person's subjective opinion, objective explanation of the ideal. Everybody's expectation of the ideal is a little different, and that's an interesting find once you get into like figure drawing. It's tempting to look for in an attempt to find the ideal. What's the template? What is the template for the ideal man? In this case, drawing the ideal man. In fact, let's do this. Let's start over. I'm going to blow this up to 200. Hopefully that won't pixelate too much, because right from the get-go, I wanted to just kind of draw a couple pairs here so that we can begin. I won't have to draw the circles once we start listening. Now, here's a fun one. Here's a fun the difference between Plato and Aristotle is great. And because they're so significant and important to Western thought, but I would say thought in general, human thought at this point. When we say Western is a way to, begin to understand where somebody's coming from and what their position is. This thing that we more and more, as the decades and generations go by, we more and more need to know, what is your position? Because we fear what the alternative could be. And I don't think it's so much that folks, and of course I'm generalizing widely here, but I think it's appropriate. I don't think it's inappropriate. We fear the alternative. So we're trying to reduce the uncertainties that give cause for fear within us. It's not so much that we're seeking the certainty of what somebody is. Are you an atheist? I don't think that's the motivation. Are you a leftist? Are you a conservative? These things, and this is more like other parts of the week work here, but this is very important to people to know. Are you a conservative? Or are you a leftist? And here this is how this would work. Let's select maybe a different color for like for the next row down. Now you've got is this social or fiscal conservative, right? You've got these different ways to look at this. But the other one would call the other one's deliberations. I don't know if you can read that or not, but infighting, right? They say that's infighting. Right? That's infighting. Those leftists and their infighting. But come on, guys. If you're gonna say leftists and their infighting, you got 3 fingers pointing back in your direction. For every finger you point at somebody, you got 3 pointing back at you. That's true here too. So calling it infighting is like calling somebody crazy. You're not necessarily categorizing something appropriately. You're finding a means of dismissal. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to square the edges anymore. You don't have to round the square edges or whatever metaphor works. You don't have to You don't have to deal with the discomfort, whether it's anxiety or a pull towards certainty, resolution, whatever your motivation is. It could be physical, mental, psychological. You see, this goes on and on and on and on and on. And the more I'm able to put down on a chart and reduce and reduce and reduce, and hopefully get it to a point where it's got your dialectic, here, and then synthesis. Because again, we're going for the whole, the all, both. It's not seek to understand more so than be understood. No, both. We need both. To have either one of those things, we need to have both. To truly understand, you also need understanding. It's the reciprocation, and we are greater than the sum of our parts constantly as humans. Our creativity speaks to this. So hopefully people will trickle in. I did get started an hour early to kind of get this, it takes me a while to get warmed up, and then I'll be able to put down about an hour's worth of solid, about an hour's worth of solid condensing. There's somewhere between, oh, did I erase the process thing? I think I did erase it. Somewhere between the freeform and the refine, like I'm able to, for about an hour, do work between those two. But I can't get to the third. I can, but not in the way that we need to have done. I can't get to the third part, which is polish and present. I can't get to that without you, without a lot of yous. And the less of a comprehensive diversity of people, not presenting features, although that correlates. It's not the cause, it's the correlation, which is like infighting, the left and the right saying infighting, accusing each other of infighting as a means to dismiss. It's kind of like we use race and identity politics. It is, you're talking about correlation, not causation. We want to get to the cause, but when you use the expressions that can be correlated in your mind to a different cause, then you never get at the underlying thing that we're only going to be able to access with a true diversity of opinions, not to endlessly humor an infinite variety of different thoughts, not different thoughts, but different ways of thinking, right? I mean, like, I'm probably splitting hairs here. This is why feedback is so good. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I know what you're saying. Or that's unclear, or what the hell do you mean? I'll put a lot of claims out, and hopefully they're all sound. I know they're not all salient, but hopefully they're all sound, so that you, as the viewer, as the audience, as a potential interlocutor, as a potential different piece of the whole that we are here, okay, trying to establish, putting those pieces together requires a lot of us. Sorry, there's something going on. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. We'll watch this video when I come back. There's different processes that we can play to, different ways that we can split things up, but we must be careful to not mistake correlation for causation, or correlation. The color of my skin is not as important as the content of my character. That is not a means to dismiss socialists, though. Martin Luther King Jr. was a socialist, all right? If that sounded like a bunch of crazy, disparate thoughts, then I'm sorry. Hang out with us more and you'll know what I'm talking about, or at least you'll know more. I need the feedback. Once I get this feedback, then I know how to winnow down the breadth of what we're describing. But today we are going to go wide with the help of history and the reason for religion. Okay, so you stay right there. I'll be right back. I love you very much. I love you, love you, love you. Okay. Going through my notes maybe for a minute may be helpful to get my thoughts together. I've been taking notes and taking notes and taking notes. And like I've been saying, there's the reduction. You get it all out there, and then you get more out there, and you say, you know, that's a lot, but I think we could get even more. And the best way to do that is to have a breadth of different personalities and thoughts. Now, maybe you can agree to that. Maybe you say, you're right, but we will have disagreements about what's good faith and bad faith decision-making in assembling a diversity of thoughts. When we talk about education, what is education? It should be a fairly uncontroversial subject to explore, right? Because I think you can equalize any disagreement pretty quickly by saying, now, if you don't have kids, right? If you don't have kids that are that need to go to a public school or that need to get an education, if you don't have a vested interest in the outcome of education, then, you know, maybe you wouldn't be qualified to participate. You could get emotional or invested to, you know, a very specific idea or thought that you're just wanting to argue about. Whereas it's going to be an equalizing factor to say, look, this is not about us. Our kids are the ones who are going to have to sit in those classrooms in those schools all day and have to deal with each other and the problems that are in the schools, no less with the education. Like, what are we sending them to school for if they're not getting an education? See, there's an argument there. Some people would say to keep the elites fed, right? Like one of the biggest problems with the pandemic. Now, I want to say I'm not fully on board with this, but I'm not fully off of board either. I'm getting stretched by keeping my feet on one on each. Let's see, in the interim, it says that people have watched for 38 minutes and 12 seconds, but I'm showing that nobody is here. And that's fine, but I don't know. Just speak up. If I hear from you, this becomes a very different experience very quickly, because I'm eager to hear from people. Eager to hear from people that are looking for what? You don't know. You've got a ton of critical opinions about institutions and experiments and whatnot. You've got a ton of man, this being on YouTube, for some reason, it just feels more awkward on YouTube. It's the same thing. I have the same camera, same room, same everything. But maybe because chat doesn't auto load on Twitch using OBS, the chat auto loads. It's right up in there. You can work the docs. Now maybe it'll work this way too, but I don't think I have. Anyways, no, can't do it. That's all right. So many things to break down. And as this is Sunday, and I would like to impress upon people, if they've made it to this point, how important this day, well, fuck the day. The day doesn't matter. It could be Tuesday, right? It doesn't matter. It's symbolic. It's a placeholder. But the seriousness that how to put the most important sentiments about changing motivations or confirming motivations, how to reduce that to one sentence to a general audience that I'm not sure of. Like, I don't know what your personality, what your history, what your energy, what your interests, what your sense of humor, all that stuff matters, right? It's not because I'm looking to con people, but it's like that without the con. I need to be able to, essentially it's like manipulation. But this is what actors do too. If you don't have a script, if you don't know what character you're playing, if you don't have direction, then you may come up with some good stuff, right? But it's not going to be worth much to other people. It might be about what we're working with here on my channel and channels. It's just a collection of things that go on and on and on, but there are nuggets inside. Now, the artist looks at the potential, right? You're looking for the potential because you're looking past what's there into what you want to project onto the thing. And this is where your cause, the cause is so very important. The cause and the motivation are so very important. When people say it's the journey, not the destination, I say, you haven't figured it out yet. Because your destination could be the journey, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that you're working towards one specific place. Like, you're goal-oriented, ambitiously pursuing the ends. You know, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everyone needs to do it that way. But if you are saying it's the journey, not the destination, because you don't like the pressure of having to account for what you're doing, then, my friend, you are very, very immature. You don't have to be an artist, right? Like, I'm not the best artist in the world. I'm probably not worth that much in this world of hyper specialization and insane degrees of discipline. When people can fully render some, and then forget it doesn't even matter because AI has caught up to that anyways. Mid-Journey and what was the other one? Dall-E, like WALL-E, the Pixar movie. Yeah. So what's the fucking point any goddamn way? You know, being angry. Okay, this is where I come in. Okay, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to be intelligent. I'm trying to do this, that, or the other. But rage and frustration and resentment and all of that comes in. Now, you take your typical Catholic, right? God bless and keep them. But let's say that they're even British, and there's some old lady that says, I've always enjoyed personal restraint because look at these harlots out here. There's teen pregnancy and alcohol and drug abuse. Oh my, oh my. I mean, there are real people that sound like that and talk like that. Sound like that and talk like that. I mean, talk like that, that's what they're thinking. It's the cause. It's the motivation. And I think an effect of that is some people on the outside, most of us are agnostic. Most of us are not into fetishizing things that have very little basis in truth. So once you get into the uglier emotions, once you get into the things that Christians, like all these motherfuckers, all of them, like, and it's you too, you secular fucking assholes. You say, oh, be cool, man, be cool. I'm going full screen for this. You say, oh man, maybe if you calm down, maybe if you did this, maybe if you did that, maybe if you did that. You always say it after the fact, if you ever fucking say it to begin with. It's always passive aggressive, it's always wrong, it's always short-sighted, and it's always privileged. It's wrong. It's wrong. You're the one that needs to learn, but nobody is interested in learning. So we get to a couple dilemmas very quickly. One is, if you're not compelled to do something, right? If the motivation, if there's not an incentive, either negative or positive, to create behavior, then people will not do it. This is where leaders who say there are followers and leaders, when people get here, which they do, Machiavelli was very much so on the nose with this. But when we get to the point that we say, yeah, no, I'm going to take, because these motherfuckers don't even know what they want. They're going to kill each other. It's not like the peaceful peasants out there. Give me a fucking break. People are not peaceful and kind. People are terrible. They're terrible. So, you know, like, you're allowed to see that. But then what happens? What do you do with that information? What do you do with the emotions? What do you do with the rage, the wrath, the frustration, the insecurity? All of these negative emotions, what do you do with those? Do you wait them out? And that gets us into a conversation about chemicals. Is there such a thing as free will? See, there's a lot here, and maybe just getting mad, I can just blah, 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 and it's all out there. So if someone says, what about this? I can say, I already fucking said that and you didn't listen. But, you know, that's not fair because I am all over the place and I got Havana syndrome. Neck hurts, like a pinching headache, nauseous. I don't feel well. It sucks. So, turmoil, marital breakdown, alcohol and drug abuse, sexual promiscuity, teenage pregnancy, and violent crime. perhaps do we find these things in society because people aren't following the 10 Commandments? I didn't make up this presentation. Somebody else said all those things on a National Geographic show about all the 10 Commandments are real and good for people. I don't mean to be such a jerk and make fun of her, but she did sound a lot like Julia Childs. And she's wrong. She's wrong is the point. She's wrong. She interviewed a swath of different representatives from different religions, but she herself is a self-professed Catholic, and she interviews. It seems that in the show I watched, there was a debate or something like that at Oxford Union Hall. I enjoyed those debates, by the way. Mehdi Hassan has participated, contributed to those quite frequently, usually representing the Muslim versus Christian, or atheist versus is Islam, all extreme, that type of thing. And Mehdi is a good example of why you new atheists and atheists are wrong. You're wrong. You're just lazy, wrong, privileged shitheads. There's reasons for having assessed things as others, I was going to say as you have, but you fucking new atheist kids, no, you didn't make this up. You just shopped and that one fit your preference better. So you're like, oh, that hat looks better on me, I'll try that one on. I don't like the one my parents gave me, I want that one instead. Which is, that's great. This is why I put the stream out the other day entitled "Why I'm Cool with MAGA," not the party, but the people. And cool is a very subjective word. Why I don't see a difference in sitting at a table and talking with people, because I don't think tribally like that. It's ridiculous. If a tribe met all the needs and was perfect and all that, that'd be a different conversation. But we'll get there. We'll get to the tribal part, right? We'll get to that part. I'm dropping 1.2% of the frames. What's up with that? Oh, man, this headache is terrible. Oh, the new atheists, they aren't really a thing. But in the episode that I was referring to, the National Geographic one, there was a debate between this gal who hosted this episode and new atheists. It was Christopher Hitchens and Stephen Fry. So after that, because that part wasn't in the episode, but after that, she interviewed both Stephen Fry and Christopher Hitchens in their, in backstage, more intimate Barbara Walters kind of framing, interviewed there. I'll just go full face when I'm angry. Oh man. But remember, frustration and negative emotions, we're going to come back to those, because, and the reason I'm lingering on this lady in this episode without actually playing it for you, but why I'm offering it as setup, is her complaint, her assertion is that the breakdown that we see in society, which is not actually happening, not like she thinks, violent crime and all that stuff is less than, let me just deal with those real quick. Turmoil, that's a new thing? Come on. Marital breakdown? What if it should break down? What if it's more toxic when people stay together? I don't think she's really talking about marital breakdown. I think she's talking about deviation from dogma, which is where this gets weird. Why? There's nothing dogmatic about prescriptions offered from God. There's no way that we can prove the existence of God. There's no deductive certainty that we can all share in about God, other than our own personal awareness, the sense of, I think, therefore I am. Take some LSD and be like, whoa, it's all relevant. Who am I? What am I? Where did I come from? Those types of questions. Those questions don't come from nowhere. They're seeking the essential, the ideal, just like our want to reduce uncertainty. To be like, are you an atheist? Are you a leftist? Are you a conservative? We want to know these things before we hear anything else nowadays, especially online. We want to know what somebody's positions are, what they're willing to participate in, where they're coming from. We want to know right away. And even if okay, yes, we want to know right away. we can reduce this. We can reduce this. What is the dilemma that we're faced with when we're looking at religion, or a question like, do we have a soul? Do we have a soul? For people to say that unequivocally no because of this, I want to know what that this is. You tell me what the this is. Carrying the assumption that there are just way more reasons to not believe in a soul. You just believe that there's way more reasons, then you are no different than the people you are criticizing. It's not a binary where you prescribe to this or that. You have to be able to back up why you think what you think. And it doesn't end. You can't just be like, this is my position. Now, there's ways to make a presentation. So it's like presentation versus position. Maybe that's the way we put that. Damn it. Hey guys, don't piss the governments off. The governments. I don't know which one gave me Havana syndrome, but don't you do it. Okay. Presentation versus position. All right, these aren't necessarily direct opposites, but there's space between where communicating is so the reason I get distracted with that is if your aim is to communicate a position that matters to you, right? Not only does it matter to you, but you have done the work. You've thought through the processes that always end in this way. It's explained this way. Okay, there's that thinking. Now, some people feel like it works the other way, that God has revealed to humans that this is the deal, this is the law, right? Which I 100% wholeheartedly reject, and so should you. The commandments, the idea that we must do this, and if we don't, then God won't be pleased, and we should fear God, and all that is completely wrong, completely wrong. Now you say, well, what you might say, well, what isn't wrong about religion? Well, a lot. First off, it's trying to give expression and voice to something that very much so matters, and we've been attempting to do that since the beginning of time. It's in fact the most consistently. It's the most consistent. Say we find a archaeological site that dates back to like 3000 BC, right? And it's in Central America or something. Religion. We go, in the Caucasus Mountains, or religion. All of the oldest. We're going to look at the tools. We're going to look at as much we can. Like, what did they use to eat, drink, hunt? Gather. What did they use? Those are always points of interest. But the religion, the gods they worship, the deities they worshiped, what they considered divine. It's interesting how trends emerge. And you see certain elements, water, fire, outer space, stars, light, darkness. This is the same thing that I'm attempting to do now. We're taking what's there and we're trying to look at it, understand it, and match it up with the thing inside of us that's pulling toward it. The difference between Plato and Aristotle and how they explained the reason. Who am I? What am I? What is life about? The answers to those questions, you have a very, very different set of answers. But when you go outside of those two and you go into the religions that we find, no matter when and where you're talking, there are there are more similarities than you may be aware of. It's not necessary to rehearse all the facts, like our friend the Gnostic informant. In fact, I'm gonna load this video. I'm gonna try to take notes while we're watching. I'm gonna put it on 1.5 speed. I might even go to 2 times speed. It might sound a little too funny then. I just want to get it up. I would encourage you to watch his videos as much as you can. I've been digging on him for about 1.5 weeks now, and they have helped me get a grip and a bead on how simple this all really is in a very short period of time. You can, again, like we said earlier, find appreciation in the mundane. That's a beautiful human, like there's a personality that is drawn to. Think of hipsters. I found this old trombone and the rust patterns just, I like how it gives it a belly and whatever. You're finding beauty in the mundane. That's not an act exclusively given to the privileged, right? Pain and tragedy and severity of lifestyle can often induce. The question comes up pretty quickly for me. Is it a personality type? Is there a difference in who we are outside of our physical body? Yes, the chemicals shape this, that, and the other. That is a very important part of getting this picture illustrated. But Plato's theory of the forms, which is really just a word or term or phrase that I'm bringing up so that we have this reference. In fact, let's write down forms, which another word for that would be the ideal. I thought it was called Plato's theory of idealism, and I think there may be a Stanford Encyclopedia entry on that. There may be something to that. It may actually be a separate thing. There's the allegory of the cave, and there's the theory of forms, and these different like entrances, but essentially they all lead to the same thing, which is truth. Okay, truth. What is truth? Religion is truth, my friends. Religion. So when some dumbass online that's a knee-jerk new atheist, bread tuber adjacent, privileged schmutz of a human, schmutz on the screen that we're trying to see real humans. I don't know. Don't listen to me. Havana syndrome. Remember? When we see these people counting by 100, when they haven't learned to count by one yet, they're like 100, 200, 300, look at the patterns, but they don't understand what constitutes, what building blocks and pieces of machinery. They don't understand the machinations and such that underlay all of that. And that's important if you're going to count by 100s and you're going to be at a point of influence that's up here. Because, I mean, look. If someone's here, say hi. It looks like someone's here based off of one of the metrics that are registering. But it says 0. Hey, throw me a like. If you're hanging out, please hit that thumbs up. I hate hearing this coming out of my mouth, but that makes such a big difference. And people are withholding it no matter what. I give likes to shit all the fucking time. Even if I don't agree with the person, it's not like the like means you're complicit in everything I say. Good golly. Oh, I don't even know if I can do this tonight. My head is really, really killing me. Yeah, I think that may be the deal. If I don't see a like pop up here by 1, right? So that'll be an hour from now. I'm just going to say whatever we got done. Yeah. The theory of forms essentially goes like this. If you're thinking of love, right? You're thinking of love. What is love? Now, this is kind of linguistics and semiotics too. It's a chain of, they're called signifying chains, I do believe, where, you attach this to that, and we all have our own collection of explanations for both physical, I don't mean to say that in Canadian, both physical things, like trees and dirt and stuff like that, and also intangible but significant things like love or trust, loyalty, versus, it's like fear or love, right? That fear and love, that's a brilliant reduction. The fear and love. Let's you've heard this, right? Is it better to be feared or loved? Is it better to rule or, as a ruler to be feared or loved? Which one's better? And what if simply through the appearance of love, like think of Stalin, okay, USSR. People say they love Stalin. They'd cry, "Oh my God, Stalin!" But there's this story about Stalin coming out, and there's applause, right? And there's applause, and it keeps going, and it keeps going. And after 5 minutes of applause, people start thinking, "Holy shit, we can't stop clapping," because whoever is the first to stop clapping is the least loyal. You should look that story up because it doesn't end well. And this is the same thing in Maoist China. It's the expectation of loyalty imposed as dogma, right? There's no wiggle room. You will be loyal. You will not only just be loyal, you will be willing to sacrifice. That's another thing. Sacrifice. Talk about restraint and sacrifice. Like restraint? Really? Restraint? Why? Why restraint? Why restraint? Why should we ever restrain ourselves? Well, there are answers to that question. But it should not be considered, okay? This is important. If anyone's here, this is the most important takeaway for today. We should not consider that by exercising constraint, restraint, piety, loyalty, fear of God, that there's some reward or whatever for that. There may or may not be, okay? But you maintaining that, while also thinking that if you defected, if you defected to Satan's side, right? The evil Satan, who's not even a fucking thing in the Bible. No such thing as Satan. But if you default, I mean, there's a thing as an adversary, but there's no such thing as Satan. So insane. It's so insane. Where are all the evangelicals at? Huh? Where you at? Where are the atheists at? I need to be able to break down some dummies. Come on, bring the noise on how proud you are of your religion, on how much you know this is the truth, and that if you use this scripture or this story or this explanation or ask me a series of questions, test me, that you'll find that, I'm just full of shit. No, I am not. You are full of shit. You are full of shit. If you are an evangelical Christian, if you are a fundamentalist of any variety, okay? Any variety. Anybody that says you've been commanded by God to follow these rules and ritualize worship is just wrong, man, wrong. All you guys are doing is looking at the effect and saying, "Oh, that's pleasing. That's a pleasing effect," which is fine, but that's a different. You don't need to have the religion to be pleased and relaxed. That's a different thing. Here's the most important point. Do not think that if you defect to Satan, there are riches and incentives for doing that. The idea that you're sacrificing what could be power and pleasure on earth, that if you forsake your God, that you could have all the riches on earth, that is so wrong. It's so wrong. There's no Satan, number one. Okay, number one, there's no Satan. Number two, we say, well, Lucifer or Belial or Azazel or Azazel, or however you say that name. Any number of these weird Enochian, take your pick, choose your poison. They're all fictitious. You say Pennywise. Oh, from the Bible, Pennywise? Yeah, why not? It's all the same, right? We're using these stories to conjure, the emotional, not just the emotional implications, but the gravity of maybe the situation. We use parables and allegories and analogies, and we do these things to help pull the essence toward the form. We're trying to give form to something that's there anyways. Not the other way around. Not that we see things in like real tangible form and then we try to give voice to it. No. It's the other way around. And you know this to be true. We try to give expression to what is not there, but still is important, right? So whether it's Pennywise or Satan or Lucifer or whatever, you're not going to get any riches or power or anything like better to rule in hell than kneel in heaven, or better to serve in heaven than to rule in hell or whatever. This is wrong. There is no incentive for forsaking or it's not about that. It's not loyalty to one team or another. It's not like this guy's going to give you power and this guy gives you strength, or this gives that, or this gives other. Like, come on, where are you at? Tell me about your stupid religion. Tell me why you either think there's no such thing as a soul because of the blah, 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 blah part of the brain, or blah, 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 blah. What is your argument? What is your argument? I've listened to all of them. I've heard all the arguments. I'm not here to be the best communicator in general to make people feel good. I'm not here to be on the internet to watch and be like, oh, I like his videos. No, I'm here to engage with. I'm here to get into it with. You know, like pick your poison. I can show you either. I can show you where the baby and the bathwater begins and ends. That's the whole point. The destruction of the first and second temple in Jerusalem, Israel, for the Hebrews, Israelites, all that stuff is nothing more than fiction. It's fiction, and Persia knew this. So the Persian Empire, was it Cyrus, saying rebuild the temple. It was a political move, but done through the love or fear, more through love, right? Like, whereas the Assyrians and Babylonians chose fear. And, they didn't just like come in and crush the Jews. They spread them out. And not everyone, but they took the elites, they took the power structures and they busted them up, right? It's a political move. Just like with Persia, they had a very different approach, but it was a political move. So we don't have to choose just one. We can use both, but understanding the form of either one. What is the form of fear? If we take fear to its logical conclusion, what is it? We can't do that. But is fear bad? Is it bad? Is it evil? Is it wrong? Whereas the other one is commandment and blah, blah, blah. We make things too simple and we're like, there it is. So I'm here to meet you where you are and ask, is it really that simple? Because if it is, then it's a reduction of things and you've given expression to form, which is what all of religion is trying to do. And as we are at a time where we need synthesis more than anything else, we need different communities to harmonize and synthesize. We need different people to understand how crazy we need to get. When you don't get what you need and people keep telling you that it's your problem, sometimes you got to get loud. You got to get crazy. Okay? But we got to do it together because we're not just we don't want to just go off into the wilderness ranting like a lunatic, which I mean, in fact, here's how this works. This is a very important part in having handles, having the words. This is a reduction. Okay, it is just this simple, but you've got two options. Divine madness. Perhaps we could say frenzy, maybe? Ecstasy? I'm not spelling it right, am I? These different things here, right? Ecstasy, frenzy, divine madness. That's one direction. That's one direction where, not the band, this is the entirety, okay? This is all of us as humans, right? All of us inside of this big, brilliant circle here, right? But down the middle, you've got, if you go in divine madness, you're just going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. But sometimes we need that. Sometimes that's exactly what we need. And this could include perhaps pleasure. Which brings me to a question. Desire. Is it pain? Or pleasure? The feeling, or not an act, right? But experiencing just make this brush bigger here. Desire. How you doing tonight? How you doing? Tell me how you doing. I'll be gentle, I promise. I'm glad you're here. Desire. Is it painful or pleasurable? Or both? But we could pretty safely assume that we're going to find that on the divine madness side. Okay, now work with me here. It's not this simple, as there are more aspects to life than these two. But let's see as we play this process out for another 45 minutes or so. Unless someone wants to come in and give a like. You give a like, I'll stay until we are done. But I'm not seeing that is happening. So weird. Now it says average view duration 0. I don't know. Whatever. Whatever. Oh, you can't see my dang ding-a-dong dang-a-dang-a-dang digga-digga. Let me try this. Let me make this a little more. I'm gonna make the video small. Okay. I'll be right with you. One moment, please. One moment, please. One moment, please. Thank you. Okay, now watch this. Boom. Okay. Why does it look? Why is? Oh, okay. No. That's cool. That's cool. All right. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna boot that video up, and I'm going to see if anyone wants to come and hang out and work through some of this with us, because I can guarantee that whatever church you are tired of, like you hate your parents' religion, they think homosexuality is evil, they think there's such a thing as evil, you know, which is lazy. There is no such thing as evil. In fact, just so when people come in, they might not labor under any delusions too long. Let's put it all in caps too. There's no such thing as evil, but are lazy and Okay, there's no such thing as evil. God does not command. What do you think? Okay. So, evil. Yeah, no such thing as evil, but we will categorize things as such anyways. That's a different conversation. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about things that anybody could talk about. I want to take what has not been synthesized, that is sitting right there for the synthesis, and maybe nudge us a little closer to doing that. Can't do it without each other. I mean, because as far as I've seen it, I've already got the pieces solved. All right. That doesn't mean I've got a presentation set up in my head. And that's maybe why I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to keep working at it like this so that maybe I can reduce it into a discussion. If we can get a map drawn, like a thought map here. And, you know, as I'm seeing this, it's kind of like, it could be like a little like orbit thing instead of a one-on-one. But, you know, different ways to set the information up. Yeah. So on one side, we've got the divine madness, but the thing that anchors us, the thing that allows us to entertain Mithraism and, you know, Bachianism and things like that. Not just entertain, but why they're necessary to help equalize the complicated, raging storm of a sea that we as humans are, the breadth of emotion and thoughts that we are subject to. You know, we have to, you can't just self-restraint and discipline, or what you would call sacrifice. That's another sacrifice. Really, sacrifice. What the fuck is a sacrifice good for? Sacrifice? Really? In fact, that's going up in chat here too. All sacrifice is stupid. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sacrifice. It's such a twisted but ubiquitous idea. And people treat it as if it's an ideal, right? That there is a form, which is the other side of this, and this is what allows us to entertain a divine madness, a frenzy, if you will. You know, form. Yeah, so that's the deal. You've got these two things. These are the two different aspects of the entirety, at least. We may find that things are going to fall in either or of it's either this one or that one. And as we consider sacrifice as just a total bunch of manipulation for humans, that's it. When we consider that the Babylonians and the Assyrians and the Persians and the three different ways that we see them deal with an entrenched population, going, you know, differences between ruling through fear, ruling through love, right? Fear, love. This is an important, where'd it go? Fear, love. These two things. Rule. Now, we talk about the law, okay? Law. And what this lesson was supposed to be about, the spirit or the letter. You cannot understand the letter of the law unless you understand the spirit first. The spirit of all things are more important than the letter. The letter should be based off of the spirit. Something important, though, is no one can speak on what the letters really are. The logos. You can't do it. The word, you can't do it. And people want to come around and say, this is the word. God has given me the word. I've heard the voice. These are the instructions. Like we see it with Muhammad. But Muhammad was a useful idiot. He was drawn as a means to produce an ends for the Arab merchant community. Now, as I've said, that was unnecessary. Just like we look at the Persians and how they afforded a sense of autonomy to the Hebrews, the Israelites, which they couldn't decide on. That they begin then to require, right, as a requirement. The law is that you must genealogically. This is after the Second Temple. This is the Second Temple, right? Temple is built by Cyrus of Persia, and the Judaic law, right? This is where we see the first, what's called the schism in the Judaic faith, right? Is the difference between, can you genealogically prove that you are one of the originals, versus we've been living here, man. Like this causes schism. You've got Judah and Israel. You know, they're called Jews because they're from Judea, right? Or Judah. Judeans or something like. So this is where that comes from. But the spirit and the letter of the law are what the lesson are on today. It is useful to draw a map and have some visual reminder, but I jump around a lot, and I'm trying to pull down some very, not just difficult, but contentious and repulsive. I say repulsive because if you can't say what your position is like that, you say, I'm a conservative. No matter what does that mean? What does a conservative mean? Forget the working definition. You just want the position clarified. And you, I say you, it's probably not you. I made myself a note on a different set of notes to not say you. I say they, because I don't want to treat you as a they. We all can imagine a they. They are either the Jews suppressing the Arab populations, or they are the Arabs who are suppressing the Israelis. You know, this in this area, and this problem, right? We're dealing with religion. You've got to understand this. You have got to understand how tense the Arab-Jew conflict is. Like, we all know this to some extent. But this shit is literally on fire. It's on fire. Like, so much fire. So hot. Not the good kind of fire. Not the Luciferian. Not the Lucifer kind of fire. Not the Promethean fire. Not the light that helps us. See, because we take all of this, we put it in the fire, the celestial fire, the entirety of God. We put it in that. And it's already there to begin with, but it's the reordering. It's the holistic. We all come from it. All go back to it. The closer we're able to synthesize, the more we're able to synthesize out of what's been broken, the closer we get to harmony, to the order, to the form of order. And order does not mean through fear and compulsion. Like, you're not compelled and commanded, but the incentive is inherent to your nature, right? To go against the incentive is to go against your nature, and to go against your nature is not a biological imperative. That's a celestial, and it's an ideal. It's based off the ideal, the essence. That's a better word. We're looking for the essence. We're looking to give form to the essence. Essence is another word for this. Right? So when we talk about the essential, essentially, this is what we're referring to. Whereas on the other side, divine madness, this people, a lot of Catholics, a lot of people are afraid. They are afraid. They fear, and they think that fear is an extension of righteousness, of piety, of sacrifice, restraint. Like, all these words are just bad. They're bad. They don't have utility. You can't connect them to where and why they pay off. And I need to have somebody that's willing to communicate about this very difficult reality, that if you're coming from a religious institution that requires sacrifices from their people, socially, situationally, it's for the good of what? Like if we're talking about our children, then that's not a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. Would you sacrifice yourself for the child? This is wrong-headed thinking. Would I give my life in order to ensure that my children's lives go on? Yes, but it's not a sacrifice. Like this idea of a sacrifice, that's the same thing as that's the cost. This costs that. Or like we look at Jesus on the cross. If you're going to be a Christian, that's not even what it's about. You're like, what are you talking about? You're going to make up your own? No. The atonement in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he bled from every pore and took on the sins of mankind. That's what matters. And that's not a sacrifice. That is bravery and all that stuff. Okay? So I need you to tell me where you're coming from, to say, I'm a Methodist and we're in the middle, or I'm a Unitarian. Because when you try to be in the middle and you're like, no, we're reasonable, we don't do all that crazy stuff, then you could be missing half of what you are, right? Evangelists kissing snakes and stuff like that are kind of closer to where we need to get to than you may realize. Not that specifically, kissing poisonous snakes, because that's a faith-based performance that's meant to demonstrate for skeptics or something. That's not of God. That is not speaking of the essence of God. The essence of God is what we are at our best and our worst. But we do not reach the depths of our worst when the reasons have been corrected. In other words, if you have the things, you have a home, you have good food, you don't feel like there's a scarcity that's being fought over by a bunch of monsters outside of your door every day. In other words, everyone that lives in the inner city, like you don't fear the uncertainty of scarcity-driven mania. That's not divine madness. That's just violence and brutality and contest. There are differences, okay? And it's going to be tempting to be like, oh yeah, well, what about this? That's what I need from you. I need people to bring me things that they think are going to break my my thesis, okay? It's not a hypothesis. It's been tested. Giving voice and expression to it in a way that you can use, right? Is where we want to get to. But when I say use, I don't mean to sit back and watch. Like, there's plenty of good stuff to watch. Then and Now, he makes amazing content. There's a ton of good stuff out here. The streamer scene, though, right, has attracted it's something that a lot of people can relate to. They're like, oh, I don't watch any streamers, but my nephew does, or something like that. Or you might do a religious service stream, but it's going to be in line with what you're already interested in. Pentecostal insanity, right? And a guy that I mentioned, his name's Wildman Chris. Is Jesus real? I gave him a shout out the other day, but then the motherfucker puts up some terrible racist horse shit where he's trying to get into a bar where it's like, what the fuck do you want to go in the bar for anyways, man? I know his kind. They just want to talk and never get anywhere with what they're doing. And then they want to blame other people for the first indication based on superficiality. Like the guy he said porch monkey. Like you call the fucking black cop bouncer a porch monkey. Nope. No. There's no excuse for that. So when people do stupid things like that are really, I mean, that's like verbal violence. And it's like, is it harmful? Probably not, because they're already laughing at him, right? He's already harmless in their mind. But if things were adjusted, if people's needs were met, if things were holistically addressed, if things were addressed with the holism of our needs in mind, then you wouldn't have these problems. Now, where the leftist wannabes come in, just like the atheist wannabes and all these little kids that are just imitating a better consumer preference, they're not coming up with this stuff on their own. They're not like, I'm not going to your church anymore, because like, you might have known already that the church was horseshit, but it's going to give you the confidence to walk away from it, knowing that there are people out here that have with full use, full access to the rationality of their mind, have made this choice saliently that the church is a fiction. It's based off fiction, not fact. If you could see that people have made that decision, then it's a lot easier for you to follow in their footsteps. And that's good. We need role models. We need people to play the role that we can then follow. You got to fake it till you make it. There's a bunch of different ways we can dress this up. But you got to keep going. So the leftist wannabes, I was going to get down on them. And don't hear me say leftists. I'm a leftist. I want you to be a leftist. We need to get past the status quo. Leftist just means the status quo ain't working. We got to get past it. Now, how to do that? We have to do quite a bit of deconstruction, but that's not it. That's just part of the work. So when we're doing this work and we're looking at religion and we're looking at our parents' religion and we're saying, oh, that sucks, and you walk away from that, that's good. That's step one, right? But you only did that through imitation through imitation, afforded to you, the confidence of which to accomplish such has been inspired by, others. You can equalize where things are imbalanced just by dealing with what's actually there. It always works this way. Now, let's say someone is prone to frustration and irritation. They're very easily frustrated and irritated. There's probably a chemical imbalance, all right? Now, dealing with that, we have all kinds of doctors and whatnot that have hyper-specialized in all kinds of medicine. Having access to those people is another thing. So, one conversation, let me put this up, and I promise after this, I'm going to queue up this video because there's a couple more things that I want to get to tonight, video content media-wise. All right, what was the thing that I was going to write down? Sorry, I didn't mute that. There's a chemical imbalance. Too, man, I can't. I need my spell check. You want to be my editor? Like mood. Now, this is kind of like this is another way to use like forms on one side, but it's not divine madness on the other. This is a different way of looking at it. You've got the ideal, right? And you've got the pragmatic, right? And when we're dealing with, like, say, political science, government, law, what it's based on, law, what is it good for? Well, it's good for something, okay? Not absolutely nothing. Oh, say it again. Law! Wait, no, that's not how that song goes, is it? Establishing why the law is there is one thing, okay? Why the law? Why? Why the law? And how expensive is it to maintain? See, now we're in the realm of government. Now we're in the realm of government, my friends. So what is the ideal versus the pragmatic form to government? See, form, huh? What's the essential? What is the essential? What is the essential of good government? What is the essence of good government? And what form should that take? Now, like artists, as I've mentioned before, think you're never going to be able to achieve the ideal for a universal collective. That's a subjective consideration. But as we all come together, right? If we have a holistic cohesion, then confluency kicks in, all right? This is where things get good. Confluency kicks in. The reason confluency has not kicked in is because people have made the mistake of assuming that sacrifice is something God wants, that piety and restraint and discipline and all of these things are what God wants, when it is not that way. I don't want to say it's the exact opposite. It's more complicated than that. It is these two things. This is what God wants. The divine madness is one part of what we are. We've been created in God's image. Now, image is an allegory, right? Because we're not coming from a realm of sense, right? Like I said, ears in the image of, that doesn't mean like nostrils and stuff. That means something that we can relate to. It's familiar to us, right? We're created of the same, I think would be a better translation. So let me pull this up. We got someone hanging out. We did for 29 seconds. I hope you're still here. Yeah, man, like, bring me something. What do you believe in? What do you not believe in? Why do you think it's appropriate to believe what you believe? This stuff is very, very, very important, and we're not testing it. We're just allowing our preferences to act as like we're just thinking like consumers, really. We say, this is what I prefer. I like it to be funnier. I like people to talk this way. I'm used to, and a lot of times we don't even know why we like things, for the reasons that we like them. I can tell you, it's because I said I know, I promise, but this is a really important one. This is an important one, okay? This motivates everything. Familiar versus, I'm going to put it in a different color. It's that big of a deal. Versus alien or alienation. Yeah. So if it's familiar, we're drawn to it. If it's alien, we're repulsed by it. Now, when it comes to art or new trend, we get tired of things. Damn, this is going to go on all day, but I feel like I'm making progress on this chart here. Now, here's an opposite of this that is maybe is a better way to track. I don't know. So this is good. Familiar is good. Alien's bad. Alienation, alienated. It means things bad, right? Like the uncanny valley, right? That would be a good example. Uncanny valley. Looks like I picked a bad pen. That's not. There we go. All right. So yeah, the uncanny valley. That's an example of alienation. Familiar is stuff you like, right? But it's almost like these are opposites, yet they work opposite too. So it sounds like I'm talking some really complicated stuff, when in actuality, I'm just trying to make complicated stuff simple and accessible, so that when someone uses a piece of misinformation or distraction, or they're playing to their secret agenda incentives, you might be able to leverage a better understanding and anticipate what's there more accurately. So let's see. The opposite that I'm talking about is new, old, right? We get tired of stuff. So there's some point between these two, right? There's some point between these two, the familiar and the old, where something happens and the value changes into the converse of what it is here. So, it could be time. Is it time that produces that effect? Is it volume of exposure? Like how many times? How many times you have seen or heard? But on the other side of this, if you're a stranger in a strange land, which to some extent we all are, because this is not our ideal environment. We are not in our ideal form. We are limited and restrained already. So there is an excitement within us, our soul, okay? This is the divine spark, our soul, which has, it's like, you ever watch Mork and Mindy? Old sitcom with Robin Williams, Mork and Mindy. He would meet with his like alien people later, and this happens in a lot of shows. In a lot of shows, I think the Coneheads is similar too. They communicate with their home planet, right? And it's either through like a crystal or something like that. It's like the divine spark is like the crystal, right? And in sometimes it'll be like bloop, bloop, transmission incoming when our children are born. Okay, this is a time when I grew up in a religion where they referred to this as the veil, right? The veil, which I think divine, there's a holy maybe means lifting the veil. I think it's in Neil's video that we're about to watch. What is familiar, what feels good, what makes us feel more like who we are is not always the most familiar thing. But if we're a stranger in a strange land, I'm saying we all are to some extent. If we're, say, at a summer camp, or we're in the military and now we just get deployed, or we're in basic, any number of things where you're taken out of what's familiar, your routine, where whatever measure of certainty or security you've feel like you've established is now upended. It's not there anymore. Everything's new. That constant alienation could at some point become your new norm, right? But aside from that possibility, you will reach for what's familiar. So stuff that you got tired of, right? Stuff that, it's like over and over and over and over again for years and years and years. Time had an effect. Also the quantity, the quantity of exposure that you've had to this thing, whatever song's been on the radio a bazillion times. But you're in this new environment. You're in this alien environment, and there's no going back home, right? This is just your new world. You will cling to as soon as you get a whiff of anything familiar, because we are creatures that have a balance, not based off of this simple Catholic. And I love my Catholic brothers and sisters, but this is how a lot of Orthodox religions treat it, especially the Catholic Church. There's good and there's evil. There's God and there's Satan. It's like, this could not be further from the truth. God is Satan. Satan is God. Everything is God to us, okay? Animals don't have the same type of awareness. They don't have the same type of criticality available to them. But in some senses, nor do we. We have to work at it. We have to listen to that spark as it lights up. And I think we all know this is true. This is not some crazy, religious stuff I'm talking about here. It's very basic, simple stuff. And I think people would expect for a guy to ask the question, what about a soul? They're going to expect the alien, not the familiar. They're going to expect that there's a catch, that there's some, come to this congregation or read this scripture or do this thing. And other people will expect that there will be some inconvenient facts and details of otherwise orthodox story conveniently ignored or downplayed. But no. What I have to say is bring it all to me. All of it. We can deal with it. We can parse it out. I might not have the perfect thing to say as if we're in a movie, right? But like actually dealing with the thing, that I can do. That we can do. We can explain it. All of what we're looking at, the letter of the law, the spirit of the law, alienation, familiarity, Arab Jews, desire. Is that painful or pleasurable? Pain and pleasure. All of these things, those are sense driven. So the ideal of the senses is almost nothing, right? Like when I say nothing, I mean life is pain in a lot of ways. If you're conscious of one of your, like you're conscious of your skin, it's probably because it's hurting. You know, there's some pain is going to bring awareness, a hyper awareness. This is another one. And Greeks, you could tell their language and the nature of the discussions that the language was meant to give form to is an expression of an interest in the ideal, using what means and measures one could come up with if your motivation is such. Remember, if we know the cause and we understand the motivation, we can, these both have been objectified, objectively understood as this and that, cause, motivation. Then we can get there much more quickly, and we can achieve, once you know what it is that you want and why it is that you'd want it, you know. But okay, Greek, we're thinking Greek, saying Greek because it's opposites, that something about pain and pleasure, drugs and you know, I was thinking about drugs because is desire painful or pleasurable? And I was saying if that we have pain, it's because there's probably some awareness that's been, oh, that's what it was. I maybe this wasn't it, but hyper versus hypo, right? So like hyper focused versus distracted. You know, like this, it's not so easy to consider distracted the opposite of focused when there are connotations on the word distracted that are negative. So, you know, negative and positive, figural and literal. This is one of the ways that I would go about assessing and appraising anything. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to, I didn't erase it, it just disappeared. And we're going to bring this up. Excuse me. And I'm going to make sure that that's there. And we're going to get rocking on this. It's kind of disappointing because this morning the video was called I assembled a religion. I discovered and assembled the oldest religion, the religion from the beginning of time or something. It was more of a personal, but now it's, you know, it's just your run-of-the-mill. It's not run-of-the-mill. I'm not run-of-the-mill. I mean, the effort seems to be placed into getting views, which, you know, you got to. And I just hate thinking about that stuff. However, the aesthetic, the rhetoric, the performance, the packaging, the playing to people's preferences, all of that matters. I know. I don't expect to be like, you guys got to work uphill from the moment. Why the hell would you be here watching me if you didn't understand why you were doing it to begin with, right? So hopefully we can answer that question more quickly. I forgot in the beginning of this, I want to start saying something consistently in the beginning. Hi, my name's Tim. This is our project. What I'd like to do is get working definitions locked down so that we can all refer to them and use them without being picked apart in the neo-tribal landscape that is today's modern political and social media landscape. You know, I would pare that down and make it better, but it's really about those working definitions. If we can establish some working definitions together, then we can build the conversation. But as it is, we can build the conversation, but since the understanding, the linguistic, the logical positivism, you know, logically positivistic limitations of language within a community that uses the same language is problematic when you consider the breadth of languages and gendered. So there are considerations of gender, like it's a metaphor, right? But different speech patterns can be considered feminine or masculine. Like if I was talking to a young lady, I wouldn't say, "Yo, what it is, babes? What the fuck you been doing today, man? This shit is crazy, blah, blah, blah." You know, you want to cater your message to your audience, right? But because I'm going for everyone, it might be slow going until people come and raise their hand, right? It's a collective. It's a synthesis. It is a cooperative. It's organizing. It's communicating, but it's all done in good faith. And it's very discouraging, depressing, upsetting, and frustrating to see that as it is in such good faith, but it deals with both left, right, religious, non-religious, unrestrained and restrained, focused, distracted. It's trying to deal with everything. Which is the opposite of people's preference, the preference that has been inculcated, that has been developed. The preference is to have your positions, boom, right there, square. You're like the leftist artist, like to call it, unless it's that, ain't nobody coming, because they need to know that you're not a Nazi or something like that, where it's like, man, ain't no fucking real Nazis out here. There's a bunch of incel redneck assholes that would LARP as Nazis harder than the Nazis did before them. But it's not Nazism. That's human nature, right? Like we need to think of things holistically. Were the original Nazis, was that part of human nature? Yeah, it was. It's not a good part. It's not something that we love. It's not something that people should be attracted to, most certainly. But it's not something that sits outside of human nature or human goings-ons or reality. To look at and understand the reality is the best defense against that type of creeping brutality. However, now the incentive for people to like have a swastika flag in Florida and stuff is completely different. But people will see that. They'll count by the hundreds, like I was saying, the atheists, as if they were that brave. They'll see the signs and symbols, and they'll linguistically extrapolate that, well, what else could it be? Well, it could be any number of things. Just because the optic aesthetic is so easy to read does not mean that it's easy to understand, you fucking dumb shit. This is church. I can say dumb fucking shit because that's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a bunch of fucking stupid motherfuckers. And they frustrate me to no end. And I would love to hear from some intelligent people. I don't mean uber educated or like hyper specialized, although that's cool too. Just like super mouth breathing, like polemically constant, uneducated street urban redneck. That's like your normal man nowadays. Like it's mixed between hood culture and redneckery. You too, man. Like I want to establish a working framework of disagreement that can help us both come through with an understanding that this is why I'd be against that, or this is why I shouldn't be against that. To have a working understanding of why things are the way they are. Why do you hate me and why do I hate you, right? Like I hate you because you're lazy, because there ain't nobody there, because everyone expects to be pandered to and catered to according to their preference, which is part of the problem, and they think that they are the solution against the other tribe, which is a problem. It's all tribal and it's all privileged. That is my problem. And we've got some pretty cool people coming out, at least to say hi every once in a while. But in totality out here, the whole scene and field shifts based off an appearance that is tallied by counting through hundreds, 200, 300. Without the OP, without the person who's like, why are so many people going back to religion? In fact, let me see if I can find that, and we'll consider watching that afterwards. But please, if you pop in, say hi. Say hi. Tell me what's up. Tell me what you believe in or don't believe in, what your reasons for that are. Do you think we have a soul? Do you think that there's a church on the face of the earth that's right or a little bit right? Or that why not let them all exist? What do you think about this stuff? If you think it, I want to hear it. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I need to know what you think is the point. And if you have doubt or you want to be, skeptical or scrutinize things, I would love to hear your process. The more significant it is to humans in general, like war, religion, sex, Nakedness is a hot topic, especially female nakedness. Lucifer, Eve, why women are vilified and demonized. You know, any number of things are the more relevant, the more I want to talk to you about it. What do you think? Why do you think that? Why are so many people going? I think it's back to religion, which is just so misinformed because people ain't going back to religion. This fucking dude is seeing yeah, okay. All right, this guy's weird. That is what he's doing. That is what he's doing. He's going on Twitter and he's seeing the patterns jump like that. But you're using okay, it says, is there a religious revival? No, man. No. We've always been who we are. We've always been this religious animal. We are not of the earth. We are using the earth as a medium to survive or something. Like, we don't have those answers. We can't say definitively. We really can't say anything about it to begin with. But we can say things about who we are and what effects we produce and what patterns we perpetuate and how we establish those patterns, et cetera, et cetera. There are many different ways for us to break this down, but we need each other to do that. And I am critical of ORrrrrrr here for a couple reasons, but not terminally so. Like, I don't care if he's one thing or another, or he's not this or he's that. I'm listening to I'm listening for the argument, and I'm looking for the patterns because I can count by one. But people don't have patience for that. So we might watch that in a minute. In the meantime, let's get caught up on what the oldest religion in the world sounds and looks like, and see if we can take some notes and produce a potentially useful make sure everything's good here, potentially useful flow chart.
From 12,000 to 10,000 BCE, Anatolia, also known as Asia Minor, transitioning.
I need two screens. I need two screens really bad. This is very difficult to manage like I need to. Sorry. But yeah, if someone pops in, like, please do tell me what you think, why this is worth this or the other. And please drop a like. Please consider let's see. Yeah, plenty of stuff to talk about, and I would love to talk about it. The spicier, the better, for real. Okay, so we're starting with Anatolia. I'm going to write that down. And let's blow this up. I think you said like 2000 BC.
from the late Paleolithic to the Mesolithic period. During this time, the region was characterized by a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, with small groups of people living in temporary settlements. The climate was gradually warming after the last ice age, leading to the expansion of forests and the increased availability of resources, such as plants and animals. As the environment became more hospitable, human population in Anatolia began to grow. People started to develop new technologies and tools to adapt to their surroundings. The inhabitants of this region relied on hunting, fishing, gathering wild plants for sustenance. They also began to develop more advanced stone tools, such as microliths, which were small, sharp-edged tools used for various purposes, including hunting and food processing.
A pretzel is pretzel flavored, not hot.
Save big and sleep better with a huge selection of top.
During this period, there is evidence of increased social interaction and trade between different groups of people in Anatolia. This exchange of ideas and resources likely played a significant role in the development of new technologies and the eventual rise of agriculture in the region. It is clear that between the time of 12,000 to 10,000 BCE, significant change and development in Anatolia, setting the stage for the emergence of more complex societies. Göbekli Tepe, an archaeological site located in southeastern Turkey near the city of Sanliurfa, dates back to the pre-pottery Neolithic period, around 10,000 BCE, making it one of the oldest known human-made religious structures on the planet. Göbekli Tepe consists of several circular and oval-shaped stone enclosures, with the largest measuring about 30 meters in diameter. The site is notable for its T-shaped limestone pillars, some are which up to 5.5 meters tall and weigh up to 20 tons. Many of these pillars are decorated with intricate carvings of animals, such as foxes, snakes, scorpions, birds, and other abstract symbols. The purpose of Göbekli Tepe remains a subject of debate among archaeologists and philologists. Some believe it was a religious center or sanctuary, where others think it may have just been a social gathering place.
Philologists study language, but damn it. Let me show you this snake that the other day. I stay up at night, I sleep in the day. It sucks right now, but that's how I'm rolling. And I went to go to sleep. Anyways, that part doesn't matter. I was getting something to eat before I lay down to sleep. And let me see. I'm gonna try to capture. There you go. Check this out. Okay, this snake here. Look at this. Oh, let me blow this up because it was a really crappy camera. I don't have a phone. I don't do the cell phone thing, but look at this. Look at this. I went into the kitchen, right? This is my back door. We got French doors, these two doors, right? And you can see the corner of the little window up by its tail there. It had just turned around and it's going back slowly, gently to where it came from. But this snake was no lie 6, 7. It's really long snake. You can see it's not like super fat. And we don't live in the jungle. I live in the forest, so snakes aren't unusual. But I come out to get something to eat, and I see this snake 2.5, 3 feet off the ground, looking in the window. It was the craziest, strangest thing to see this snake. You know, the window panels, you can see, let me see if I point. Oh, no, it's this way, right? Point there, this direction, right? You see the window? Like, I'm pointing at the window, that like square edge there. There's a bunch of cubed windows, and the snake was 2 or 3 panels up, just looking in. I'm like, whoa. I have this strange affinity with animals somehow, and that is what it is. This is not like, it's not like, it's obvious a sign, but this was weird, guys. This was weird. And I wish I had a better camera so I could have documented, you know, what I'm working with here. But I got down on my hands and knees, started talking to it, and there's another picture to kind of show that it was up there. It was like all the way, the snake was all the way, very, very, very strange. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm not faster at this. Let me change. Oh, there. Okay, here's the other. Here's the others. Yeah, there you go. So its head is like feet and feet and feet. Oh, that way. It's the way the picture is positioned. But listen, we're in a very strange time on Earth right now. There are no true churches on the face of the earth. And I grew up in a church where that was the whole catch line. That was the whole phrase. There's no true churches on the face of the earth when Joseph Smith was walking around, blah, 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 blah. Jonathan Edwards, not the guy that ran as vice president under somebody, but the guy from the 19th century, 18, 17. No, it was, when was Jonathan Edwards around? Jonathan Edwards was around maybe in the 1700s, but let me see here. So looking at letter of the law. Jonathan Edwards is responsible for the American revivalist deal. He was also an incredibly adept. No, John Edwards. See, not that guy. Jonathan Edwards, yeah, okay, so 1700s, was an American revivalist preacher, philosopher, and Congregationalist theologian. Look, this guy, and it's interesting, Aaron Burr, the guy that, killed Hamilton in a duel, as his father was had a relationship with Edwards. Like, they were friends, right? So, and Aaron Burr Sr. was actually a really base dude. But Jonathan Edwards, let me get you a little picture here on the screen. Well, the picture doesn't matter because he looks like one of these old-timey dudes. But he's the one that's responsible for saying, get off your ass and stop being a fool. This is not a game. This is not a contest where we compare who's more righteous and this, that, or the other. It is inside of you, inside of your heart, your soul. You feel it. You know it. The difference between right and wrong is up to you. But you must tell the truth about what that is and work at it. As you do, you will grow more righteous. Now, where he got things terribly, terribly wrong was, being born in the 1700s. So we can only use what we have available to us. Each dispensation only has so much foresight, afterthought. There's only so much there available for you to base like difficult, holistic, explanations off of. Now, right now, though, is a unique time. The problem in between what I'm talking about and why it doesn't get through to people is that people are stubborn, callous, and resistant because our trust historically has been broken. Who can trust what? Where does authority come from? This is the question that I would like to resolve. We're not going to get it done today. But I'm at least going to try to lay out some of the tracks for it. Where does authority come from? The answer is nowhere. It doesn't come from anywhere. The word authority, literally authorship. So either there was an original author, i.e. God, or the cosmos, and if you're an absolute materialist secularist, then the authority is in the natural laws. That's it. Well, that's fine. For a religious person to say that the authority is in the natural laws does not forsake God, because you would need to say where God gave someone a commandment. And we say, well, Jesus. Okay, let's talk about Jesus then. We can do that. I can run with the most adept of Jesus fetishists on the planet, of which there's like 2.5 billion. 2.5 billion Christians on the planet. And there's over 40,000 different denominations of Christianity. In Islam, you have roughly the same. You have 2 billion people, but there's really only Sunni and Shiite. And there's the Sufis, but they're not really part of that 2-point-something billion people. Judaism, you have three. You've got Reformed, I don't know, it's Reformed, Classical, and Orthodox. I don't remember what the third is. We've got it written down somewhere. Oh, let's see here. Oh, I guess conservative. So it's Reformed, Conservative, and Orthodox. Those are the three types of Judaism. And out of the Sunnis and Shiites in Islam, the 2 billion, members, people who profess belief in Islam, 87% are Sunni and 13% are Shia, which is not a fair. It's not a fair analog, but it's kind of like Catholic, and not by the numbers, but Sunni is more monarchical, more like playing to competing with the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses, that type of like performative nonsense, busybody, like we're the ones who are. And Shiites are more like populist, right? But keep in mind, and this is not a direct analog, and the numbers, this is not represented in Christianity where you've like most people are Catholics and 13% are, non-denominational or something. But it's kind of, so you could think about it like that. They're not just like two different opinions. They proclaim loyalty to one or the other of the friends of Muhammad, even though they all fucking killed each other. Terrible religion, terrible, terrible, terrible religion, full of death and brutality and rape, and it is that stuff. I'm sorry, Mehdi Hassan, your religion fucking sucks, dude, but I'm not going to say that Christianity is like the good one. No, when it comes to Christ and what is in the idea of Christ, what the essential form that we're trying to idealize when we think of Christ and who we are, these questions are what I'd like to have a substantive discourse with people who are informed or not on. There are too many misunderstandings about of how it's either this or that. It's this way or that way. It's this way. You're a new atheist or you're a Catholic. It's like, come on, man, that ain't even close to truth. So as we look through time and we look at the beginnings of these religions, you can really very easily see where all the characters come from. They're all characters. Some, tertiary dumbass on Twitter's like, Jesus is but again, these new atheists, they're so smart. They fucking picking on little old ladies. That's all they do. Some little old ladies like, Jesus is love. And then you take that and you're like, Jesus is brainwashed. It's like, so he's like, Jesus is brainwashing fiction. So are you. You are brainwashing fiction. You're not a real person. You're a Twitter icon, and you're using a meme to offer the criticism. You're not even putting it into words yourself. You're letting the meme communicate for you. So as far as fiction goes, check, check, check. As far as brainwash goes, you're trying to influence a greater understanding than you have command of. So check, check, check. Fictional brainwash. That's what it is. Now, if we can stand outside of that contest and we can assess and transmit a better understanding about what the ideal we're trying to give form to is, or the function that you're looking to maintain, whatever the objective consideration or the subjective awareness is, either way, you're either objectifying the subjective or you're establishing the object. If we can do that, then, like you say, well, and look, that's all I'm willing to say. I'm not interested in your criticism, but at least you understand what I'm doing, so that when you criticize or judge me, you're not like, if you're judging a cake contest, but you're scoring it based off of a car safety, checklist, it's not the right thing. You're like, this is the worst cake I've ever seen. It doesn't survive in a T-bone, accident. It doesn't survive in. It's a cake. It's not a car. But everyone online doesn't care. They don't care. This is how the atheists think. This is how the Republicans think. This is how everybody thinks out here. So this is why I don't care if you're MAGA or you're atheist or you're evangelical or you're, extremist Islam. Like, if you're willing to communicate with me, I can guarantee progress. I can guarantee it. I'll put my life on the line. I do put my life on the line out here. I'm not hiding from everyone. I'm using my real name. I'm using my face. It's not about the things that people choose to fear. You know, when you're like, are you an atheist? Answer this question. Are you an atheist? And I'm like, I don't even know how to answer that because it's not a good faith question. What do you mean, are you an this, that? Are you a this or that? Like, it's not that simple, dumbass. It's not that simple. We're not a this, that, or the other. Now, if you choose to be a this, that, or the other, then you are wrong. You have stepped off the path of light into the path of fear and obedience to a standard and an authority that is not able to justify itself. No less perform any kind of functional, utility. So, like, this idea on the other side of this, that if you stop sacrificing your, the horniest, most fucked up, perverted people are Christians, religious people. The more self-restrained, the more horny and rapisty they are. The more they think about rape and sexuality and, oh my God, I can see your ankle. How dare you, evil woman, be a woman in front of me? Like, don't you know what that does to a man's sex drive? It's like, that is your problem, and it is a problem. It is not on the woman for having a sexy bone shape on their hips. That's not their fault. It's not even fault. This is what I'm saying. It's the wrong language to even appraise what we're looking at in the first place. These categories of restraint and liberty, as if you gave up on the piety and restraint, and you were like, Satan, I pledge my undying soul to you in the ranks of hell with all of your demons and hell's angels. I plead my undying soul. I, Timothy Brian Pierre, I am in your army for all. I sell my soul to you unequivocally right now. That doesn't mean anything because it's based off of fiction. Satan is not in the Bible other than as a word to mean adversary. That's it. Now, we can extrapolate and explore and understand how there were other connotations and archetypes and essential ideal characters that helped give form to certain aspects of what we not just see, but understand as part of our experience. Death, crossing the river Styx, all of these things may or may not be more or less in front of people's face. So you can see why, like, a river god or someone is going to be more important at this time or other. You can see why monotheism ends up having an appeal like it does when it does. You can see why Islam has such an appeal because the Arabs needed some type of thing to rally around to compete with the other merchants in the area that were busy colonizing and whatnot. This is pre-colonial, but still, it's the power dynamics are in play nonetheless. And Islam, they used Muhammad as a useful idiot to help synthesize some type of competitive presence in the region that they felt entitled to, rightfully in many cases. But the obedience and fealty to this person or this idea is not of God. No, never. These commandments, the Torah, all of it is terrible horseshit. And I'm not saying this to be offensive. I'm saying this because it is offensive to God. Now, who can speak for God? I can. You could too. But if you're lying about it, this is not LARPing. I'm not LARPing. Some things I know, some things I don't. But I do know that your laws are offensive to God. There is nothing written on the inside of our souls that says, this is the deal. All of this that you swear is a sign of commandment or word given from God is mired in layers of uncertainty and history and confusion and incentives and agendas for competing kingdoms and power sources. It is history. You can cut through it by using your rationale, your reason, your patience, your deliberation. You can go through it and you can achieve a better vantage point by going through it, because back to the mountain metaphor from the other day, you can do that and gain a better understanding. But all of these religions, all of these characters, they all connect. So when we're talking about authority, which I'm going to write on this too, even though this isn't our dialectic sheet, but for anyone coming in wondering what it's all about, authority from God has never, ever, it is never, ever Ever. Authority from God has never been granted. Ever. Ever. Other than just the way that things are. Just the way things are. If you can look and you can learn and you can reason and you can entertain a rationale that helps you gain a greater understanding of external and internal matters, personal and make what is impersonal personal by demonstrating empathy and kindness and understanding how to exercise empathy, like we use our reason and our process and we deliberate based off of what we know personally to be more or less right. As we do that, we gain a greater vantage. The more we see, the more we have available to observe, and the more we observe, the more we see other people that see us, and so forth and so on. It's a process that goes a certain way, right? And the only way that you can justify an authority to begin with is through process. Not faith, not belief, not undying loyalty to an idea that's not functional. Or you say it was functional 2,000 years ago. First off, how do you know? And second off, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was not. So authority from God has never, ever been given. It's already in place. This is the point. Authority from God has never been given. There has never been someone that says, these are the rules for you to follow. Now, they may say, God is real, and he wants you to know that he loves you. But you already know this, and you don't need somebody to tell you that. It's part of the process. So if Christ is a thing, right? If Christ is whom he says he is, was, is, whatever, it's an embodiment of an ideal that precedes Jesus or Yahshua or whatever his name was. It precedes him. It precedes him so much so that from the beginning of time, we have been giving voice to these ideals. We've been searching for the best form, for the essence that came with the frame, my friends. So yes, we have a soul, and there's more to that. If you want to look at this through a neuroscientific lens, we can do that too. But for now, let's get a little history. Keep writing this down. Please drop me a comment, a like, subscribe, tell your friends. This is a collective project. If it's true, we gotta know it. All right? If it's true, we gotta know it. This is not a subjective patchwork. That's not how truth works. It's not like what's true for them might be true for them, but it's not true for us. That's not how truth works. And that is offensive to God. So let's get on the other page than being purposely offensive to God by doing things that doesn't help anyone on earth only, and I'm looking at you, Islam, only, and Jews in Israel, Jews in general, especially Orthodox ones. Come on, get your heads out of your asses. The law is dog shit. You're going to fucking develop Mossad because people know your law is dog shit. And you can't handle arguing on the merits of reason, rationale, and human nature anymore. You have to hold this in place through force. Then you are not doing God's will. And if you insist that your kids fucking cut pieces of their dick skin off to remind them of that, you are even further from favoring God's will. If you think that death, and now I'm looking at you, Islam, again, if you think that death of others and self are possibly part of God's will, you can go fucking straight to hell, which isn't a place. So I don't even know why I said that. Look, you're all wrong. The dogmatic assertions that you guys make about what a gift God gave us this law, or Muhammad, what a prophet he was. This is history. We can use our rational mind, which is of God. This is what God affords us, the opportunity to use our rational mind and go through the process of understanding, not just ourselves, because as we do understand ourselves, we understand God more, right? We're created in their image. But by understanding ourselves, we understand other people more too. We understand why feelings matter, maybe more than facts. That facts are based on feelings to begin with. But the more we work through it, the more of an holistic sense we gather. And we see that the more of us come together and go through this process of arguing whether this is true or not, testing, is this true or not? Trying to understand what God would want from us. What is God? What does that even mean? Are there multiple gods? Why isn't the pagan thing real? Is there magic? Is there sorcery? What the fuck are whoredoms? Whoredoms and sorcery? Get the fuck out of here. This is more bullshit that humans, mostly men, have created to keep people in control. If you are a white man, you would love the Mormon church. Go try it. But if you're anybody else, it is not meant for you. It is meant for white men to control. That's it. That's it. That's it. And Joseph Smith saw when he was around 1840 or whatever, that the control was not really working. So you need more feelings in place. You feel strongly about this, that, or the other. And there's a little bit of fear, but only when you need it. Only when you need it. It was really about social engineering. But why I say Joseph Smith would still be a prophet, just like Aleister Crowley, just like potentially Muhammad. I don't know enough about what he professed to have been spoken by Gabriel's mouth into his ear or whatever. Or no, it wasn't even, he didn't even write it, right? It was like someone else transcribed it, but Gabriel spoke into Muhammad's ear, so then Muhammad spoke to somebody else and somebody else wrote it. It's like all this stuff is made by man to secure power against what they perceive to be a threat or a threat, right? The perception of threat versus actual threat, that's another matter. But the religions and the characters that are inside of these religions, the hopes and the fears that we want to try to mitigate. Like if you have a bad harvest this year, you're fucked. Everyone dies or somebody dies anyways. Some of your kids, maybe. It's not good. You need to have a fruitful crop, you know? So what do? You pray to the crop god, right? But then when you start sacrificing one kid so that the other 4 kids can live, in theory, because this god wants that this is where you've gone wrong. And although it might not be as deadly, monotheism coming into the scene, you know, was an answer to that. Like, God doesn't want us sacrificing humans. God doesn't want us sacrificing anything. Killing animals for God is not what God wants. That's not how that works. Animals do a pretty good job of killing each other already. What's more sacred, the snake or the eagle? The snake. But we use these eagles to, like, you know, they're good guys, when it's like, you know, the poor snakes don't. Nature is a bitch. Nature is a vicious, vicious bitch. And that's probably wrong too, because nature is Gaia, Mother Earth, and using the word bitch, it's female dog. It's like, these are all diminishing and negative terms, and they stack up on top of each other. So when we just speak normal, when you talk normal, we're being complicit to mindlessness that we can replace the mindlessness by overcompensating with intensity of belief. Like, I really, really believe that Obi-Wan Kenobi's a good guy and Darth Vader's a bad guy. Oh, okay. We're not talking about religion. Yes, we are. It's the same stuff. These stories and these characters and these archetypes, they are what are written on our hearts. We don't need to chop pieces of dicks off to prove to God that we're created by him. There's no one group of people that's chosen by God. It's the action and the intent, the motivation, and the recognition of cause that marks that community. Now, that community also agrees that you don't have to believe this stuff. You can believe what you want, but we encourage people to seek truth, not just convenient, preference-oriented, consumer-driven, you know, like expectations, right? Like, I expect you to pander to me. This isn't fun. This isn't funny. This is blah, 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 based off dysfunctional expectations that you've held as norms. Now, you may overcompensate with religion this way or another, but people are not coming back to church. Andrew Tate just went to jail. Everyone who goes to jail ends up being Muslim. That's how that happens, dumbass. Everybody who goes to jail goes through a Muslim phase. Everybody. Dumbass. That's not a sign of people going back to church. That's you seeing me on Twitter. That's it. So talk to me. Oyo boyo, or what the fuck ever, talking about Hitler being possessed by Wotan and stuff. Like, that's not a subject you want to be like, oh, isn't this funny? Yeah, I know Carl Jung moved once he looked into Hitler's eyes and saw how scary that was, but that's nothing to just be like, this is interesting. You need to take this shit seriously. If you're going to be talking about fucking Hitler and Wotan and shit, you need to take this a lot more seriously, my friend. People are not coming back to religion. They are not going to, because there is no religion to go back to. There are people who are doubling and tripling down on orthodoxies, which displeases God, I can assure you. And people are getting it mixed up about what righteous is. And me, as the Antichrist, who is part of, not the head of, a movement that is yet to come to fruition, but will, is only meant to represent truth, to say all the orthodoxy and severity and strain and delusions about the benefits of self-restraint and delusions about the power and joy that they're, or not joy because they wouldn't call it joy, pleasure that they're sacrificing, that Satan would give them. If you just forsook God, like Jesus in the desert, you know, like, I'll give you kingdoms and riches, and that's such horse shit. There's no reward either way other than the reward you can produce for yourself. Now, ethics and morals, standards, the cause and the motivation, that's something different. If you just look at money as motivation, if you just look at sex as motivation, and you say giving into that, wanting that, even then it's not that simple, because then you need to further objectify how to produce the most of, or the most quality of. Still, using your rationale and your reason, you know, will become part of the process. And that pleases God. So your objective should be in some type of ethical or moral framework. But if you're objectifying the result that you're looking for, then you've already begun that process, because reason and rationale are the medium that our soul, which is the life that we've got, the physical life that fades when you die, the soul's gone too. The spirit, however, the spirit is not gone. And our spirit is connected to the entirety. The more of us that come together in this life, in this mortal coil, the better of an understanding we'll have of that. And we've seen this as entertainment and such is played out, and technology and whatnot. It reinforces the holism. Not new age fucking mamby-pamby, be nice and self-restrained and, oh, carry yourself. No, fuck that. Divine madness is part of what we are too. But be reasonable and understand what you want, instead of just giving into the divine madness, saying, nope, today's a divine madness day. I'm going fucking balls to the walls, all the balls that I got, which are more than two, against all the walls. Anyways, ideas don't come from nowhere. Us as humans are not these clever individuals that are like, I just like the color blue. I don't know why. You like the color blue for reasons, okay? And if you were born in a different time, you would be different. End of story. Chemicals can be altered, right? We could talk about moods, and we could talk about mood enhancing, altering. We could talk about physics. You know, like, there are different considerations as humans for us to be concerned with. But the more we understand, the more we see that it is a confluent and organic, metaphysical, multi-tiered corruption of the ideal. I mean, that's what it is. So we try to get back to the ideal, and we're pretty close, but we're so fucking lazy now, and we expect people to cater to our preference, or we think that a more extreme orthodoxy and dogma are what are called for because God wants that. But you can't tell me where that authority came from, Nick Fuentes, you fucking fool.
The site predates the invention of pottery, metal tools, and advanced agriculture, which has led some researchers to propose that it may have played a role in the transition from hunter-gatherer lifestyle to a more settled agricultural society. One of the most intriguing aspects of Göbekli Tepe is the apparent lack of permanent habitation. There is little evidence of houses or domestic structures, suggesting that the site was not a permanent settlement, but rather a place visited periodically for religious ceremonial purposes, similar to what we see at Stonehenge. The site was intentionally buried around 8000 BCE, possibly as a means of decommissioning the structure or as a form of ritual closure. The reasons for this remain unclear, but it has helped to preserve the site in relatively good condition. Göbekli Tepe has significantly impacted our understanding of early human societies and the development of religion, art, and architecture. Its discovery has challenged traditional theories about the origins of civilization and has raised new questions about the role of religion and ritual in the lives of prehistoric people. Jericho, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, with evidence of settlements that go back to 9000 BCE. Its first inhabitants were likely a mix of hunter-gatherers, just like Göbekli Tepe, who settled in an area due to its fertile soil and abundant water sources. These early inhabitants would have lived as simple mud brick houses and relied on agricultural hunting and gathering. Over time, the settlement grew and developed, eventually becoming the fortified city that we know today. However, a more advanced city or palace known as Knossos in Crete, which has evidence of people living there going back to 7000 BCE. This may be the first real city in the world. Now, Knossos would not have existed as the ancient Minoan palace that we know of today. However, it does have evidence of some sort of building structure located where the palace was built, which means that Knossos as a city can be traced back to 7000 BCE. Now, Knossos would not have existed as the ancient Minoan palace that we know of today. However, this may be the first real city in the world, grew and developed, eventually becoming the fortified city that we know today. However, a more advanced city or palace known as Knossos in Crete, which has evidence of people living there going back to 7000 BCE. This may be the first real city in the world. Now, Knossos would not have existed as the ancient Minoan palace that we know of today. However, it does have evidence of some sort of building structure located where the palace was built, which means that Knossos as a city can be traced back to 7000 BCE. The Minoan civilization, which was centered on the island of Crete, did not emerge until 2700 BCE. However, in 7000 BCE, the area was inhabited by Neolithic communities who practiced agriculture, and these are the people that Homer talks about that are called the Pelasgians.
GoDaddy is a partner that always puts
The Copper Age, also known as the Chalcolithic period, was a transitional phase between the Neolithic civilization, which was centered on the island of Crete, did not emerge until 2700 BCE. However, in 7000 BCE, the area was inhabited by Neolithic communities who practiced agriculture, and these are the people that Homer talks about that are called the Pelasgians. The Copper Age, also known as the Chalcolithic period, was a transitional phase between the Neolithic Stone Age and the Bronze Age. It is generally dated between 4500 and 3300 BCE. During this time, human societies began to use copper tools and weapons in addition to stone. The Copper Age was marked by significant advancements in technology, agriculture, and social organization. As people learned how to smelt and work with copper, they were able to create more efficient tools and weapons, which in turn allowed for the more productive farming and hunting. This led to an increase in food population, supporting larger populations than the growth of settlements, which came with the growth of art and ideas, which led to religion. Trade networks expanded during the Copper Age as communities sought to acquire copper and other valuable resources. The exchange of goods and ideas facilitated the spread of new technologies and cultural practices across different regions. Medicines were traded. Metallurgy also had a profound impact on social structures as a specialized craftsman emerged to produce copper tools and weapons. These skilled artisans often held a higher status within their communities, reflecting the growing importance of metalworking in Copper Age societies. Ritual practices continued to play a central role in the lives of Copper Age people. Megalithic structures such as Stonehenge in England and the Gantija temples in Malta were constructed during this period, demonstrating the sophisticated engineering skills and religious beliefs of these ancient societies. The emergence of complex burial practices, including the use of grave goods and elaborate tombs, also points to a growing concern with the afterlife and the veneration of ancestors. The Copper Age saw the rise of several important civilizations, including the Sumerians in Mesopotamia, as well as the Minoans of Crete, and the pre-dynastic Egyptians in the Nile Valley. These early societies developed complex political systems, monumental architecture, and sophisticated art and writing systems, laying the groundwork for later Bronze Age.
Look, you phony troll weirdo. What do you call yourself? Wesley Curry II? Phony fuck. Listen, if you want to actually talk, we can talk. But you don't want to talk. You're some religious zealot. You're either some weird Central African kid trying to con people online to lend you $50 Walmart gift cards, or you're some fucking Israeli asshole pretending that you know shit about history because you want that land. You want that land. Kick them fucking Palestinians off. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You say the ashes in your hands is death. The wages of sin is death. Fuck you, man. What the fuck is a sin? Who gets to say what sin is? Death is obvious. You don't need to remind people they're going to die. What the fuck is sin? Huh? What the fuck is sin? And if you want to have a contest to see who can inflict more actual physical pain on another, there's no contest. Israel wins. You win, Wesley Curry II. Blends don't mix. No, mix that shit up. Race mix. Do it up. fucking blend, don't mix. There's not one religion, there's not one community, there's not one dogma that is on the face of the earth that deserves to be given fealty. Not one. There's not one single institution on the face of the earth that deserves that type of obedience. Not one. And if you weren't some troll fucking asshole, you would articulate how you can connect authority and obedience to something other than your own confused, racked mind and soul. You don't know what you're talking about, and you're a pain in my ass. So fuck off or start talking about actual things. Talking about flavors and shit. I don't give two fucks about flavors or your mixed up apprehension over like ghosts and things. Like, you asked me who my favorite dead Jewish person was. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? I say Lenny Bruce, and you're like, Lenny, tap him on the shoulder. That's fucking weird, man. That's weird. I'm okay with weirdness as long as you give follow through. But the fact that you think you're right about things, or you're not even a person to begin with, tells me there's no reason to interact with you. So that's it. Respond to what I just said, or just fuck off. If I see you again and it's not a response to what I just said, I'm blocking you. I put you in timeout last time, but I don't care for your brand of insanity. It doesn't progress into anything. Wesley Curry II. Fucking crazy ass bitch. Whatever religion you think is true is not, and I can prove it. I can prove it. There's nothing, it doesn't connect to anything. Whether it's the Torah, whether it's the Quran, whether it's Confucian sayings, whether it's Xi Jinping rewriting Christian history, saying that Jesus actually stoned the woman to death instead of saying, he who is without sin, throw the first stone. Like, there's so much misinformation out here. You're part of it. You're part of it. Whether you're a real human or not, you're part of it. So respond to what I said. Tell me what religion you are and why you think they have authority. Say something that makes sense. Stop trying to ingratiate yourself on me. I don't need a friend. I'm not out here because I'm lonely and I just want someone to talk to. That's not it. We all have a spiritual loneliness as an effect of the disconnection, tribalism, and dogma that we have deferred to instead of what actually is God. Death does not scare people that understand that this life is not just biology, but sin is not anything at all. It's made up. There's no such thing as sin. The snake in the garden was a good guy. Eve was smarter than Adam. Hebrews have been lying about shit for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Arabs wanted to compete, so they got their useful idiot to prop this shit up, and now they compete. You got your contest. Are you happy? It has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with Abraham. It has nothing to do with anything but your insanity, and I am an enemy to your insanity. So if there's such a thing as sin, you are the sinful one, so death will be unto you. But you make up these rules. If you want to know what's real, actual, and how things work, which you don't, or else you wouldn't be in some stupid fucking crockpot fundamentalist, troll squad, then, let me know. But you've had your chance, so fuck off or prove yourself not to be a troll. Those are your two choices. Prove yourself to not be a troll or that one. Your choice.
Age civilizations to follow. As trade networks expanded, the facilitation of goods and ideas crossed paths from different regions, and religion and ritual practices continue to play central roles in the lives of people, culturally and politically. The influence of the Proto-Indo-European pantheon on Vedic and Greco-Roman mythology, as well as the early Sumerians and pre-dynastic Egyptians, can be traced back to this transformative period in human history.
Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I
Proto-Indo-European pantheon of gods is believed to have originated in the Pontic-Caspian Black Sea steppe region, a region that spans from modern-day Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan all the way over to Europe. As the Proto-Indo-Europeans migrated and interacted with other cultures, their religious beliefs spread and evolved. The Vedic religion, which emerged in ancient India around 1500 BCE, shares many similarities with these Proto-Indo-Europeans. For example, the Vedic god Indra, the king of the gods, the god of thunder, is strikingly similar to the Proto-Indo-European god Perkwanos. Similarly, the Vedic god of fire, Agni, can be traced back to the Proto-Indo-European god Angwanos. The influence of the Proto-Indo-European pantheon can also be seen in Greco-Roman mythology. The Greek god Zeus and the Roman god Jupiter both share characteristics with the sky god Dies Pitar. Additionally, the Greek god of the sea, Poseidon, and the Roman god Neptune have similarities with the Proto-Indo-European god of water, Neptos. The Sumerians, who inhabited modern-day Iraq, developed one of the earliest known systems of writing, cuneiform script. This allowed them to record their religious beliefs, which centered around a pantheon of gods, including Anu, the god of the sky, and Enlil, the god of wind and storms. These gods would later influence the religious beliefs of the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Syrians. The Pelasgians, however, were pre-Hellenic people who inhabited parts of Greece and the Aegean region before the arrival of Greeks. Little is known about their religion, as there are few surviving records or artifacts. However, it is believed that they practiced a form of animism, or nature worship, with a focus on fertility and agricultural deities. Some scholars suggest that the Pelasgians may have influenced the development of early Greek religion, particularly the worship of the earth goddess Gaia and other chthonic deities. In pre-dynastic Egypt, before the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt around 3000 BCE, various local deities were worshipped. Some of these deities, such as the falcon god Horus and the cow goddess Hathor, would later be incorporated in the Egyptian pantheon during the dynastic period. The early Egyptians also believed in the concept of Maat, cosmic order that maintained balance and harmony in the universe. The Minoans, centered around the island of Crete, was another influential Bronze Age culture. These Minoans are best known for this palace that I mentioned earlier at Knossos, which featured elaborate frescoes depicting religious scenes. Minoan religion appears to have been centered around a great goddess who was associated with fertility, nature, and possibly the underworld. The Minoans also had a male god, depicted as a bull or a bull-headed man, who, connected with Bacchus, may have been the consort to the great goddess. Dionysus shows up in the earliest forms of writing, as well as hieroglyphs, predating writing itself. The Minoan religion was centered around the worship of these various deities, with a strong emphasis on the female goddess, the serpent goddess. The primary deity was this mother goddess, who was associated with animals and nature. Other important deities, the master of animals and Skyfather, were part of this pantheon, and the Minoans practiced rituals involving animal sacrifices, processions, orgies, and offerings. Their religious symbols included the double-headed axe, the bull, and the serpent. The Roman pantheon was influenced by these various cultures. Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. Manu and Emo are figures from Indo-European mythology. Just like Romulus and Remus are the legendary founders of Rome in Roman mythology. Manu and Emo are believed to be the first man and first king, respectively, in the Indo-European mythological tradition. In some versions of the myth, Emo is sacrificed by Manu to create the world, just as Romulus kills Remus in order to build Rome. In the Indian myths, Manu, the first man, and his twin brother, Yama, is sacrificed and is the first to die, who becomes the king of the underworld, while Manu becomes the father of mankind and survives a flood like Noah and Gilgamesh. The god Mars, the Roman god of war and oaths, is connected to the Proto-Indo-European god Mawards, the deity of war and storms. This figure is also related to the Greek Ares and the Hindu Marutas. Neptune, the Roman god of the sea, is linked to the Proto-Indo-European Neptos, the deity of water and underworld. This figure is also related to the Vedic god Napat and the Irish god Nakat. Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom and war, is associated with the Proto-Indo-European goddess Hesos, the deity of dawn, and this figure is also related to Athena and Eos, and the Hindu goddess Ushas. Venus, also related to this goddess as well, is the goddess of love and beauty and fertility. Also, the dawn goddess, who is known in Latin as Lucifer, Lightbringer. Heos is the figure in the Proto-Indo-European pantheon related to this. There is also Perquanos, the lord of oaks, which reminds one of Zeus of Dodona, one of the ancient wonders of the world, surrounded by oak trees. And like Perquanos, he is a sky god connected with thunder and lightning. Obvious connections to Indra as well as Zeus. Keranos, the name of Zeus's thunderbolt. The Herkina, spring nymph, associated with the river of the same name, identified with Demeter. The name could be a borrowing, as it rather follows a Celtic sound law, which explains why Indra and Dies Pitar in Hindu mythology are two distinct gods, unlike how Zeus takes on the role of both and is synced with Jupiter. Both related to Dies, or day father. Jupiter, the king of the gods in the Roman pantheon, is associated with Dies Pitar, the sky father. This deity is also the precursor to Zeus, as I've mentioned, and the Hindu god Dies Pitta. This god, although a sky father, seems to be connected with an underworld king of Hades known as Dis Pater. Dis Pater, otherwise known as Rex Infernus or Pluto, is a Roman god of the underworld. Dis was originally associated with fertile agricultural land and mineral wealth, and since those minerals came from underground, he was later equated with chthonic deities Dionysos, Pluto, Hades, as well as Saturn, who becomes the king of the underworld and rules the golden age where everybody has wealth. Tacitus refers to the god Odin as Mercury, Thor as Hercules, and Tyr as Mars. He calls the Isis of the Suebi, who is known as Freya. I think it should be pointed out that Herodotus also relates that the Hyperboreans are descended from Hermes, connecting Odin once again to Mercury. But Julius Caesar himself, who spent many years of his life in Gaul, relates that they are descended from Dis. This makes sense because the ancient form of Bacchus, who is the frenzy god, and Odin is the god of the frenzy who possesses. Bacchus is also the god of the frenzy who possesses. Both Odin and Bacchus are connected to the All-Father Dis, the king of the underworld. This connection between Hades and Bacchus goes back to the Greeks as well. Here we see two depictions of Bacchus and Hades, both looking identical. Black beards, ivy wreath crown, and holding a thrice's staff. Saturn's role as the devourer and underworld king can be traced to Egypt. Sobek, also known as Seb or Geb, is either depicted with the head of a snake or a crocodile, as he devours the souls of the wicked. In Greco-Roman Egypt, Seb or Geb was equated with the Greek god Kronos because he held a quite similar position in the Greek pantheon as the father of the gods, Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, as Seb did in Egyptian mythology. This equation is particularly well attested in Neptunus in the southern Phaeum. Seb and Kronos were here part of a local version of the cult of Sobek, Lord of the Four Corners, the crocodile god. The equation was shown on the one hand in local iconography of the gods, in which Seb is depicted as a man with attributes of Kronos, and Kronos with the attributes of Seb. On the other hand, the priests of the local main temple identified themselves in Egyptian texts as priests of Saknatubis Seb, or Saknatubis Geb, but in Greek texts as priests of Saknatubis Kronos. Accordingly, Egyptian names formed with the name of the god Seb or Geb were just popular among local villagers, as Greek names derived from Kronos, especially Cronian. In the case of the Egyptians, it was this destroyer, Seb, who takes on all the traits of the Earthshaker, Poseidon, Hades, king of the underworld, and the sky father Zeus, and he holds a trident like Poseidon, but also like Shiva. Seb, like Shiva, can be connected with the Proto-Indo-European Sewa through this god Sabazios, who also has a Proto-Indo-European root name, Siwa. Shiva, one of the principal deities of Hinduism, is indeed associated with time through its aspect of Kala. Kala, which means time in Sanskrit, is one of the many aspects of Shiva. In this form, Shiva is considered the lord of time, destruction, and change, just as Saturn has the same traits. He is often depicted as the destroyer of the universe, who brings about the end of time to make way for new creation. This cyclical nature of time in the universe is a key concept in Hindu cosmology. Kalis and Kali have similar Proto-Indo-European etymologies. The word for Kalis, as you can see here on this chart, to call, to cry, it's also related to the word calendar, or the kalends of a month in the Roman calendar. But here we see kel, to turn, in motion, pivot, pole star, connecting with time and the cycle nature of the heavens in the sky that turns in a clockwise nature. Kel and Keli are related through this Proto-Indo-European word. So the goddess Kali, who's the consort of Shiva, just as Kalis is the father of Saturn in Roman mythology, and Kalis is depicted on the cuirass of Augustus of Prima Porta at the very top above the 4 horses of Helios's quadriga.
I think this is important here. For any human out here, like real, actual human, you can take this understanding. Okay, already I put this improperly. You could take any point on this map that the Gnostic Informant has been so kind enough to share with us, essentially for free. Okay, this is a lot of work. This is a lot of work that has gone into, and I'm not necessarily talking about the video. The video, I'm sure, wasn't a breeze. There's a lot of cuts. There's a lot of movement. And in addition to it being presented in a very utilitarian fashion, it is given an aesthetic, how can I put this, where our eyes are on the screen. I don't know if it's just him, if it's Neil, or if he's got a team or whatnot, but they have an understanding of how things read, right? What I mean is, if your eyes are here and the scene changes, what comes next is that focal point should pick up on the point that the creator wants you to land at, and it'll move accordingly. So we'll see movement in the way these frames are being presented, and your eye doesn't have to scan to another starting point when the next image comes up. It's all done with a flow. Like I said, the creator knows how our eyes read, not just our brains. But we could pick up any point in here, any point, any god, any aspect of nature, all that good stuff. You can pick up any point here, and we can dive deeper in, because every attempt throughout time that's represented here is an attempt to give form to an ideal. Now, we are biased by our immediate, not just physical surroundings, but we're also biased by the impressions of fear that we've been given by the preceding generation. In other words, if your parents say, oh, there's such a thing as God, and God's always watching you, and masturbation is wrong, right? Which it's not. But they say masturbation is wrong. Then you're going to have this idea that God's watching you while you masturbate, right? And you're going to have to overcome that at some point, which is near impossible, because overcoming it still involves you thinking, people are, God's watching, or there's still the sense of watching. I just don't care. I just don't care who sees anymore, because it's not about them, right? People can watch as much as they want. What I'm getting at here is something different than what, and it's not about you, right? So my point is morality. If it's not informed by actuality, if there's not a biologically evolutionary, if there's not an evolutionarily certain aspects of groupthink that I criticize, and confirmation bias, or the idea of self-restraint in the presence of temptation, all of these things are usually an effect of survival, and that's how they can be explained. But once we know better, once we know there are no demons waiting to possess your soul, once we know there's no such thing as sorcery, there's no such thing as magic, there's also no such thing as whoredoms, and there's also no such thing as Moses, Also, there's no such thing as many, many other things that we used to kill and be willing to die over because we believed in them so much. We believed in them because we thought it would create a different outcome or keep a different outcome at bay. And we know that this is not true. That's not truth. That's not reality. That's not actuality. So once we get over this idea of sin and we start looking at why does this make sense or what makes this good, if we have parents that are smart enough, kind enough, and loving enough to have championed the essence of what morality is based on, then we'll be very fortunate as a child to be able to pick up from that platform that they've established instead of having to search on our own. And if it's even worse, where the parents say, there's a God and he wants us to fear them, and this is the writing that they gave to some prophet and the prophet wrote it down, then we're fucked, because all of that's fantasy, and it was always only ever meant to give voice to an essence of something that we felt we could conjure that would be appropriate for something that fit into our surroundings. If we lived next to a river that was prone to flooding, we would have a river god. If we were very reliant on whatever was produced by our toil, i.e. farming, we really needed what we farmed to grow and produce a certain yield. We need to have this many pounds of wheat and blah, 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 blah. If something happens to that yield, then we're screwed. We're starving. People may literally be dying. So being accountable for the needs and necessities of people, considering the materials and our ways to manipulate outcomes with materials, we are making up gods and things along the way to allow us to not have to be overwhelmed and paralyzed by an seemingly infinite array of choices and outcomes. If we're responsible for every choice and outcome, that can be paralyzing. So it is easier, and by virtue of function, it's something that affords us. Okay, survival is not just physical, right? Are your cardiopulmonary machines working? Is your heart pumping? Are your lungs breathing? Right? That's one thing. But your mind and your spirit, your spirit, these things have their own requirements. So for us to be healthy in one of these regards, and keep in mind, if we're unhealthy in one of these regards, physically, mentally, spiritually, if one of them is out of whack, then so too the others will suffer. Corruption is a holistic thing. Once corruption is in one part, it's potentially spreadable to the other parts. So we make up these gods, we make up these stories to help relieve us of some of the paralyzing aspects of unlimited choice and possibility. Those things are overwhelming. So the reduction of uncertainty is a reduction of anxiety, and mitigation of anxiety is usually best done through storytelling or conjuring or distraction or any number of things that we've done. So observe those things, and when you're talking about mixing and blending and the difference, that is an intelligent distinction to make, but it's not appropriate, because mixing is what we're all going to be, anyways, in the end. Mixed together. We come from the same source. We will go back to the same source. Earth pulls itself into the same source. Entropy is always moving towards this breakdown to nothing. And nothing is uniform. It's static. It's the same. So you can't be so simple-minded as to suggest that sin is real. What the fuck is a sin? There's no such thing as sin.
He is a mature, bearded man who holds a cloak over his head so that it billows in the form of an arch, conventional sign of deity that recalls the vault of the firmament. He is balanced and paired with the personification of Earth at the bottom of the cuirass. These two figures have also been identified as Saturn and Magna Mater to represent the new Saturnian golden age of Augustan ideology. On the altar of the Lares, now held by the Vatican, Caelus in his chariot peers among with Mithras above the figure of Augustus. The name Caelus occurs dedicatory inscriptions in connection to the cult of Mithras. The Mithraic Caelus is sometimes depicted allegorically as an eagle bending over the sphere of heaven, marked with symbols of the planet or the zodiac. In the Mithraic context, he is associated with Cottus and can appear as Caelus Aeternus, eternal sky. A form of Ahura Mazda is invoked in Latin as Caelus Aeternus Jupiter. The walls of some of the Mithraea feature allegorical depictions of the cosmos with Oceanus and Caelus. The Mithraeum of Dieburg represents the tripartite world of Caelus, Oceanus, and Tellus, below Phaeton Heliodramus. Mitra Varuna is a deity or dyad of deities that played a significant role in the Proto-Indo-European religion as well as the Vedic religion, composed of two distinct elements, Mitra and Varuna. This divine pair represented different aspects of sovereignty, with Mitra embodying reason, order, and benevolence, and Varuna symbolizing violence, darkness, and inspiration of the frenzy. The concept of Mitra as Brahman and Varuna as the king of Gandharva is a particular suggestive formula. The Gandharva normally live in a mysterious world of their own, beyond the darkness into which Indra smoked the singular Gandharva for the greater good of the Brahman. In Varuna's legend, the Gandharva intervened at a tragic moment to restore his failed virility with a magic herb, just as the first Luperci put an end to the sterility of the woman Romulus had abducted. This Mitra Varuna dyad can be seen as an ancient form of the Apollonian Dionysian dualism that we see in Greek mythology: sky and underworld, dark and light, righteousness and liberty. In an earlier model, Georges Dumézil proposed that Waranos, also the god in the reconstructed dialogue.
Now, this is an appropriate this is an appropriate thing to stop on here too. A friend of mine, I cannot help but to think that my friend thus Roe spoke, or Wedion Tachyon GP or whatever, is someone else. I think I know who you are now. And you are a public personality. But dualism. We talked about dualism, and I was right and you were right, okay? I've just been on this religious thing, so it was tough for me to jump from one sector into the other. Dualism is both the understanding there's a good and an evil that makes up the entirety, right? And that form of dualism is much older than this modern atheist kind of, justification game that's played. When we talk about dualism as if consciousness is separate from body, that is true. And I really am kicking myself for not having caught up on it. Was like, what do I know? I know dualism. It's like, what am I talking about? Oh, it's actually quite simple. I forgot about the complicated one. The idea that dualism says that your consciousness is separate from body. But then there's the opposite of that. What's the opposite of dualism? Let's see here. Pull up a different tab. See, I know compatibilism is when you think that there's kind of some middle ground between these two ideas. That and this is probably where I'm at too. The idea is that here's the explanation. Our bodies are like radios. They play the frequency, and the radio can be messed up. The speaker can be broken. It doesn't have to be perfect hardware. If it can get any of that signal through, that signal is going to try to come through. Right? It uses this material as a medium to give voice to something that is essential and ideal beyond the ken of the material. And we can explain this by seeing, but we can explain this a few different ways. But mostly, this is the proof that humans are more than just the material. We produce more than the sum of our parts. If you put everything that humans have created back in the human box, there's way more than we started with. And I'm not just talking about numbers. I'm not saying there are more people or so. If there's more people, of course there are more buildings. The more we come together, the more, I mean, think about when the Silk Road was, happening between the East and the West, which is not a thing. We're on Earth. It's a circle. There's no East and West. There are ways we can define reference points, and those are useful. But taking those reference points and then asserting that those are explanations that are essential, not just descriptive, is wrong. And that's how most people are rolling nowadays. East-West, like that's a thing. East-West, give me a fucking break. East-West started probably because of the split in the Catholic Church, Byzantine and the Roman Empire. And then to make it even more confusing, you have the Holy Roman Empire later, which was neither Holy Roman nor an empire, but that was like Germany, Habsburg, Austria. So it's nothing to do with Rome, right? And with the Third Reich, the Nazis, and with Mussolini's fascists, and with Peter the Great in Russia, they all wanted to recreate Rome. And now people are using the analogy that America is an empire, and as all empires fade, just like these people got right that Trump would never get elected, right? The experts really know what they're talking about. No, you knew what you were talking about when things were staying still. Things are moving way too fast for that now. The experts don't know anymore, but people do. People do. We do. We can come out of the woodwork and we can say, this is what I think. And say, that's what you think? That's not right. This is what I think. And we can argue and we can synthesize. We can mix and blend and create something that was not there to begin with. We create what is greater than the sum of our parts. It's like alchemy. We've been trying to do alchemy since the beginning of time because we know that we can control our environment once we can objectively utilize understand and then utilize things objectively. Now, creating gold out of other metals is not so crazy of an idea. We understand enough about the actual mutability of substances now, and truth be told, gold's not that valuable. So, you know, but the many things, the many aspects, the many different characters and emotions and states of mind and ages and developmental stages and all these different things that make up what one human is. No less more humans combined, considered as humans. We create more than the sum of our parts. And we've always looked to give voice or expression or form in the real world to a form or an essence or ideal that is somehow in our imagination or heart or something. It's not there, so we want it to be there. And this is how sculpting and painting and music and all these things come on, because we're giving voice to the ideal best we can, where we don't find it naturally or we see it naturally. But communicating what the essence of something is not just a hyper-realistic rendering of the physical things in front of us. There's a mood, there's an atmosphere, there's a spirit. We talk about the times as a zeitgeist, spirit of the times. The law, the letter or the spirit of the law. What the hell is spirit? Where are you going to see spirit? We can't see spirit. So even for the most niggling of, hair-splitting, fact-parsing, materialists, you're still taking for granted that you assume there's more. And it's such a damn shame that the institutions and the orthodoxies, such as in the Jewish faith and the various orthodoxies, whether Greek or Roman Catholic or these stupid fucking mouth-breathing rednecks in America that think they're Christians. They're like, I read the book of Revelations literally. Every word in that book is literal. First off, no, it's not. And second off, if it were, you still got it wrong. They get it wrong. And in America, in the evangelical churches, particularly of the South, they are racist by nature, because they have conditioned that into their communities. They're like, oh, I ain't racist. But at the first opportunity they have to be, the first time a black man tells them they can't do something, all of a sudden it's because of this, that, and the other. It's insane how racist the South is. It's insane how fucked up and wrong every orthodoxy there is out there is. They're all terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And if there's baby in the bathwater, we can find it. But you're assuming the whole thing's baby and the rest of the world is bathwater. And you got that backwards, baby. You got the all the way backwards. So the opposite of dualism in terms of like neuroscience, monism. Okay, so like monism. That's like monism. Okay, I've heard that before. Dualism contrasts with monism, which is the theory that there's only one fundamental category. So this is the same thing. Talking to my friend about this, they're really living in this terminally online streamer gatekeeping world where they think the only thing that matters is the memes that Vosh shares with his Reddit and what Destiny shares with. And if you like Destiny, you can't be a Vosh person. And if you like Vosh, you can't be a Destiny person. It's like, who fucking cares, man? Like, I'm trying to care. I'm trying to get into that. But those guys are a lost cause. They don't really fucking care. It's down to real people out here, real actual people who have to get onto the street and start bringing people in to change the culture. Because as it is, the culture is completely screwed up. The culture is radically corrupted, and it is producing more and more cancer to the kindness and creativity that we, when we're privileged enough, should be giving voice to. But instead, we're giving voice to our preferences and to conveniences of familiarity. And so then even then when you have people like Lonerbox, never mind, whomever's out there talking about this stuff, they use the word dualism, and then the assumption is that dualism is in regard to the soul argument, that do we have a soul? Is consciousness separate? But that's not what dualism is. Dualism is just saying that there are two opposing forces that create the entirety. So if we're using the dualist application to make considerations about consciousness, then it's a useful term, but it's used in that setting, not from that setting. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So the opposite of dualism is monism, and that would mean that, you know, we are our bodies. That essentially means that we're just animals, right? It's not that God made man, but he used a monkey to do it. It's not that it's just that there's a monkey that turned into a man. End of story. There's no when you die, you're dead, and that's it. I understand why people want to entertain that line of reasoning. It's kind of part of growing up. But in a religious sense, the orthodoxy of these institutions, this has corrupted the opportunity, not even like the people and their thoughts, but it's corrupted the opportunity in general for people to think about something more than the physical and the hyper specialized disciplines that you know are a wonderful part of our progress and contribution as humans. But they want to look at it through the frame of familiarity that they're used to. It's their preference. And it's just not going to work. So, you know, we got to get different people out here. We got to get people in here because these dummies are only going to go where they go. And that's already established. It's already in place. And I really don't feel like making videos where it's like, in the beginning, there was always hope. When hope faded, Deadpool, blah, 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 video games, blah, 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 transgender issues that nobody understands but acts like they're a really, really big deal. Ron DeSantis, blah, 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 blah. News clip, news clip, news clip. Like, the commentary that people lay down, if it's fucking weak, but it looks good and it plays simply. And you might be, the art of that has now become, can you get them to think along the way? But don't try too hard, because if you do, then they're definitely not going to watch it. It's a shit show, guys. It's a shit show. I don't know that anybody's going to watch this later. I don't know that this matters at all. I wanted to get into a really worthwhile, substantive conversation on the soul, the human fucking freaking soul. That's what I wanted to do. The soul. The soul. But you ain't got no soul and you ain't got no brains, and I'm so fucking tired of this game. And people like Wesley, what the fuck second phony ass bitch, like, I'm squarely convinced that there are communities out here that purposely keep things down. Purposely. Because there should be a middle. There should be a middle ground here where there's some effect that's produced other than this. And the fact that there is not explained simply because people don't understand me or whatever, because it's like 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, something over the course of a few months should have become familiar with what we're doing here. But no questions are asked, no comments are left, no likes are given. That is weird. It's weird. It's weird. So whatever, I'm not going to let it bother me, because the larger conversation is explainable as it's explained. Ideas don't come from nowhere. Okay? They don't come from nowhere. Our understanding of things can be broken down like this. Okay, this is more in line with where I wanted to go today. But it really comes down to this. Okay, if you're gonna fast forward to the end, or you were kind enough to watch all the way through, please give a like, subscribe, but give a like and comment, and I will comment back. But I look and see, and although I've got some comments from the past, they're so far back, it's like, in this world, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So, and those videos don't have the likes. So I kind of have to assume that the comments are just nonsense. Even if you read the title and you just respond based on that, that's fine. That's fine. But I might not get to it if I don't see a like too. I'm looking for people who actually want to disagree with me, or maybe help me understand how to refine the conversation. But all of that is fixable. Okay, that's fixable. We can choose how we're seen, when we're seen, what is seen, etc., if we know what message we want to communicate. For now, I need you to understand that we need each other to establish the breadth of topics that fall under this human conundrum, and we need a diversity of perspectives to help cook them down, so that we have something like this, so that we can say, you know, a lot of people's motivation comes from what's familiar and alien. And these two things are that model, that framework for analysis is is polarized, like the poles switch when when there's after time or quantity, some function like that, whether it's what's been familiar has been familiar for too many years, or quantity, like I've seen that movie too many times, then it gets old and we need a little dash of the alien. But there's a different calculus for that. What makes something exciting, and there are different demographics, and we're learning more and more as advertising campaigns and preferential algorithmically determined entertainment continues to grow. We learn how to cater to preference, but the people that have the time and the inclination and the dollars to buy based on the ads that come from this information are not normal people. There is financial inequality that is, and educational inequality and cultural inequality, and all these things that have created so much space between us that the only people that this is catering to, in other words, the only thing this incentive is, the incentive is to appeal to the people with the money, okay, and the time and the privilege, and usually the age group, which is a little older. And they are so disconnected from the rest of us that this entertainment will only get catered more and more and more for them. And you, yes, you, just like me, will soon be left out of that process. So hurry the fuck up and wake up, because as it stands, this conversation has been 100% about this. We as humans need to come together, not in a corporate kumbaya kind of, performative way, but we need to come together, because the more of us that come together, the more of us understand what we're working with. And you don't want to waste your life so that by the time you get to the end of it, you say, God damn, I wish I knew this before, because it's so much more precious, and the utility that every moment has is fleeting and significant. So there are two parts of us. We want to give form. We want to bring what we understand on some level, in some really strange, if you're an atheist or a materialist, there's a really strange way to bring the essence of things that we have some understanding of into an ideal form, right? And we do that through gods and entertainment and archetypes and a whole manner of things. Then there's ecstasy, divine madness, frenzy, the Bacchus, the Bacchian tradition. And that's another part of us. Whereas dogmatists and people who love them some orthodoxy, they don't get it. They think that there will be a reward for their self-restraint, and they think that people that don't care about that restraint are out there just fucking and drugging and fucking living it up, just giving it. They're all just fucking. As soon as you make the decision to not have restraint, then all of a sudden you get all this fucking everywhere. Obviously, look at the ad campaigns. There's all these sexy women everywhere. These old stodgy old Catholic British ladies don't get it. They don't get it. There's no reward. There is none. Either way. There may be incidental rewards from the self-awareness that's practiced. The religious practice a certain form of self-awareness and progress that they're working towards. So this is why MAGA and atheists I'm cool with to an extent, because they're at least trying to differ from the norm, the broken, busted, viciously misinformed and lie-based status quo. They're running against it. So I'm okay with that. I don't care if they're extremist Nazis of the modern age, because they're obviously lost. And we don't want to just say, look, they're lost, so fuck them. We want to say there's a fundamental flaw in the platform that they were raised on. And if you just show them reality, it may or may not be too late for them to have a meaningful change in their life. But they may influence others, like children or grandchildren, nephews and nieces and things. They may change the direction of attitude and energy, the frenzy that's within all of us. They may point that in a different direction for different reasons. When you know you're allowed to do something or have an opinion, then it changes how tightly you grip it. And aesthetics and optics that trigger people, it's like, why don't you see through that? Why don't you see through that? Here's the point, though. Here's the takeaway. Where does authority come from? Where does authority come from? There has never, ever, ever been a God that has said, here is the authority. Never, 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 never. That's not how things work. There's no law or anything that God has come and brought us and somebody was able to write down. It just doesn't work that way. Authority is something we must trace and track and understand why Why is the law necessary? What is the spirit of the law? What is the spirit of the times? What is the spirit? What is the essence, the ideal? What is the platonic form of the human? It's something more than material, my friends. And I hope that I can call you friends, but it's very fucking lonely out here on YouTube. So I'll look forward to seeing my actual friends on Twitch tomorrow at midnight for Right Wing Review. Amen. Good night. Hallelujah. Your fucking dog was stupid. Yada, yada, yada. Blah, 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 blah.